The Laker Movie Nerd Review Podcast, the newly formed and combined love child of the Movie Nerd and Oswegonians Laker Review Podcast.
I'm gonna make him an offer again.
Say what again? Say what again?
Why so serious?
Watch what happens. Well, what happened is this bull would go right through your fucking head. Watch what happens.
I am the one who knocks.
Also, apparently, literally, Arrested Development drove itself into obscurity with this newest season.
Wait, really?
Yeah, like, I don't know what
Fuck,
but
dude.
I heard, like, everything. So, because the whole big thing was when they finally said, okay, season 5 is finally happening.
And they
then
split it into
they split
two
it into
parts, yeah.
And then part 1 coincided with, oh my god, why is Jeffrey Tambor still on Arrested Development if he got fired from Transparent? And then you had that awful interview with a decent amount of the cast members where Bateman was basically trying to mansplain to the reporters, like, oh, he didn't yell at Jessica Walter on set. This is what actually happened. Meanwhile, Jessica Walter is trying to defend herself, but it's more so one of the things where it's like, I'm a professional. We should really stop talking about this, though. And then the girl who plays Maybe, what's her name? Alia Shawkat, I remember, because Green Room.
Yeah.
And Duck Butter.
How was she in Green Room?
I don't like Green Room, but
Really?
I
figured that was the kind of movie for you.
That's the weird thing. So I thought it was, but it's definitely one of those movies that warrants a rewatch. That's the thing.
How about this?
Especially after
we do a
watching
movie
Hold
night
the Dark.
and you rewatch and I'll watch for the first time.
Okay, sounds good, because Green Room...
Because I meant to see Green Room and never did.
What I will say is that in terms of showing me things, in terms of continuing in trend of horror movies that don't just take every cheap excuse out, then I'm like, oh, this is actually, made by a director.
How's Yelchin in it?
Oh, vision. Yelchin is the best friggin' part about it.
Perfect.
He is...
What a fucking... oh my god.
Here's the thing. Yelchin just has such a believable demeanor in every single role that he takes. I don't know if that's just him.
It's him.
Or if that's just like, if he's just that talented an actor. But literally, like, here's the thing. So
He was talented,
when
dude.
he was in Star Trek, right, I remember a lot, and not necessarily with one, because one was like the first time like people knew him. He'd been doing stuff throughout the 2000s. Like he was in that movie with Jennifer Lawrence and Felicity Jones, Like Crazy, which I heard was really good.
Yeah.
And then he was in the Fright Night remake. Well, that was after Star Trek, was the Fright Night remake. And then he was in a movie in 2008 with Downey Jr. called Charlie Bartlett that I heard was fantastic.
Yes.
I heard that movie was really good. And so you see this kid in Star Trek for the first time, and I know in the sequels people were kind of criticizing him because the accent was a little bit over the top, but I'm like... But, okay, sure,
First
the accent's
off,
a little bit over the top, but that is one of the most believable, like, I believe that I was watching, and keep in mind, this is without having
First
seen a
off,
single episode of the original
The
series.
kid's Russian.
Besides that, the fact that, like,
Like-
I believed I was watching a young, like, this is the thing that I don't think those J.J. Abrams movies, I call them the J.J. Abrams movies, I know we only did the first two, but this is the thing that I don't think those movies get enough credit for, is that, to this day, these are still the only movies that I've seen where it's a prequel cast, right?
Yep.
Of a beloved fan project.
Yep.
And they knocked it out of the park with all the casting. Literally, so Chris Pine as Kirk, Zachary Quinto as Spock, Carl Urban as Bones, Zoe Saldana as Uhura. I know a lot of people gave her shit because they fucked up the Spock Uhura romance, but I thought for her part she did good. Anton Yelchin as Chekhov, John Cho as Sulu, and Simon Pegg as friggin' Montgomery Scott. Absolutely
casting.
Inspired
And
casting. Because when I went back and I rewatched the original series, I never once felt like I was watching impersonators, and I never felt like I was watching characters. I felt like I was watching younger versions of the cast that would eventually become the characters that we would know, but still were good enough actors that they were able to give enough of... put enough of their personal stamp on the characters.
When you watch Pine do Shatner, he's not doing full
that's
Shatner.
The thing. You say Pine doing Shatner. I don't feel like I'm watching
no, but that's
Pine
what
do
I'm saying.
Shatner.
That's
I
what
feel
I'm
like I'm
saying.
watching Pine do Kirk.
I was doing air quotes around that. When you're watching Pine do Shatner,
right?
It's Pine. It's just Chris Pine being Chris Pine. Zachary Quinto is adding in that same fucking flair that he's added into every role that he's
and the
ever
fact
done.
that he is doing the, for lack of a better word, the Vulcan. And, like, I remember I would watch Red Letter Media, and Red Letter Media liked Star Trek Beyond a lot more than the first two because they feel it, and I can understand why, because the first one was written by Orsi and Kurtzman. We all know how that went, but I think that this is probably one of the only times where I think I'll criticize Red Letter Media for being a little bit too unfair. With those first two movies, they feel like, the characters feel just like caricatures. And with the third movie, they feel like it's the first one where they actually feel like the characters. And I'm like, yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
First off, Abrams is always able to get a genuine performance out of his actors.
Yes.
That is why I always, even if something doesn't appeal to me or looks like it's going to be shit to me, if it's directed by Abrams, I give it a shot because I know I'm going to like his character.
Agreed. And that's probably the thing that J.J. Abrams does not get enough credit for. Like, I know...
Everyone's like, oh, he's such a good writer. He's such a good in-the-moment writer-director.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't write most of his stuff. Like, I know he helped write Force Awakens, but that was mostly Kasdan.
No, absolutely.
The Star Trek movies, the ones that he directed, were both Orci and Kurtzman.
No, but by write, I mean in-the-moment writing. Like, as a director, like, oh, we can add in this sort of...
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean. Not like a staff writer, but like a in-the-moment... Let's change this, He's really good at those types of moments.
Right.
And that's very apparent in Force Awakens when you get really genuine... That's how he gets such genuine characters in my opinion.
And that's one of the things that I think has gone universally said is that in the 4 years that we've been living in post-Force Awakens, and I've heard every single criticism in the board, I still love Force Awakens. It's not my favorite of the new ones, but of the core trilogy ones
you're a Rogue One guy,
I'm a Rogue One guy. I've said this multiple times. I will go back to this every single time. Rogue One is my absolute favorite of the 4 movies that we've gotten in this decade of Disney Star Wars. And I don't care. I will stick by it every single time.
Here's the thing is, Rogue One hits a specific audience, a specific subgenre
and
of the Star Wars audience.
And a specific tone, I would say, also is the big thing to look for.
Well, the tone is what I'm saying with how it hits the audience. Because it hits a very specific subgenre of Star Wars fan, where it's like, we want more grit. We want more, we want less... Disney, we want more.
It's more than that, though, because I would say even with Rogue One, the Disney influences are still there because you still have the little creatures involved and everything. Like, it still feels like Star Wars. But to me, at least, it's the only one, and I don't want to use the word adult because there have been adult themes. Like, Empire to me is still the most adult version of Star Wars.
First off, Empire to me is easily the best.
But I also just think that whenever people say, oh, Star Wars is for kids, I don't like that. I don't like saying that really any property, not Star Wars, not Star Trek, any of the big pop culture nerd properties, I don't like saying that they're for kids. Right. Not for child audiences, because again, children are the primary reason why fucking movies still get made now. Because they attract the biggest audiences. Because whenever you have a teenager going, they're going by themselves. If you get a kid going, their parents have to bring them, and that's more money. So naturally, kids have always been the source of primary box office when it comes to movies. But what I don't like is when movies, first off, again, it kind of goes back to something that I mentioned on this podcast last year with the idea of turning your brain off. Where that term is now in pop culture basically become an idea for people to not think about, and it's basically become an excuse for writers to become lazier with their properties because they're like, oh, well, the audience isn't going to give a shit because they don't know what good storytelling is, and that pisses me off because then you get audience members like me and who want a legitimately good story, and I get it, I am fully aware that I'm speaking for the minority, but if the last couple of years have shown anything, it's that the audience is there. There's a reason why all this shit goes to Netflix, and it's not just because of accessibility. It's because the audience is there. And I have kind of a similar stance when it comes to the idea of something, oh, it's just for kids. Because to me, that's demeaning it. It's making it specific towards one audience. It's killing off the universal appeal of movies, because the whole idea behind movies is that movies are supposed to be the one medium that do branch generations, culture, any sort of divide that there is in a fucking, within people in general. Because, people are people. We make up fucking a new reason to hate each other literally by the minute now. It used to be by the day, but now because the internet has sped everything up, literally by the minute, we have new reasons to hate each other and go down each other's throats. And so the reason why I'm constantly championing for critics, not necessarily critics, but just people in general, whenever they are talking about movies now, to stop using terms like turn off your brain, or oh, it's just for kids, or oh, this isn't adult enough. I hate fucking words like that, because to me, all that is restrictive, and movies should be anything but restrictive. Movies, it doesn't matter if it's the most animated kiddie fare or the hardest core fucking gore fest, whatever. Obviously, like I said, fucking, specifics aside,
Well,
semantics aside,
and so
movies are for everyone. That's the point that I'm trying to go for.
The thing that I go back to last year whenever we do talk about turning your brain off,
right,
is I defend that phrase myself because I do use it from
But the
time to
difference
time.
being that you also have a point where you're coming from there, versus other people, like I said,
other people
use it as an
literally are
excuse
going
to defend bad movies and lazy filming.
I just turned my brain off during Transformers 2.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, shut up.
Yeah.
No, so it's like, when I say turn my brain off, I've tried to watch Rogue One, going back to Rogue One for a minute.
Right.
I've tried to
Holy
watch...
shit, wait, did you actually go back to a subject that we started off on without going off onto a completely new tangent and then forgetting about the original subject?
Right?
What? What is this? We're advancing!
We're doing work in 2019.
Hell yeah, dude. We're about to graduate college. We have to.
So, with Rogue One, I've tried to watch it both ways. I tried to watch it by actually sitting there. The first time I watched it, I calculated. I was, like, thinking the whole time of, like, where this could go, how the script is impacting, you know, the characters, how the characters are impacting the plot. All that.
Right.
I was sitting there and I was going, okay. And I I was like, okay, this could go any which way of these places if they do it right. And by the end of the film, I felt they did not take the correct steps to reach that perfect endpoint. Based on, and hear me out, because I've had...
No, this is interesting, because this is like the first legitimate argument that I've heard, because you're right. What I understand is that even though I do love Rogue One, I do understand that the script has flaws, but I do want to hear, like, your thoughts on them.
So, personally, first off, the plot, perfectly fine. You want to make a spy film within the Star Wars universe and a secret agent, you know, heist film within the Star Wars... That's so cool. Don't make that only the last 40 minutes of your movie.
Okay.
Because
so you think the idea of them finding her dad took up too much of the movie, and to the point where the actual heist didn't really matter until the last act, by which point it was just all-out war pandemonium.
I was going into Rogue One, I was ready for Felicity Jones to be playing a Danny Ocean-style character, getting together a group of misfits to steal the Death Star plans.
Okay,
because it's
perhaps more of an Ocean's 11 set in the Star Wars verse, rather than, say, like a Saving Private Ryan, which I feel is what I got more so from the movie.
It's so Saving Private Ryan, but with Saving Private Ryan, my biggest issues in that comparison to Rogue One is Saving Private Ryan is driven by the characters. You're driven by Tom Hanks' emotions.
Right.
Who's the racist?
The racist.
The super, like, let's kill all the Nazis.
Oh,
the one that you're like, no.
The one who was about to desert after Eddie Burns. Eddie Burns is the actor's name.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Eddie Burns, Tom Sizemore, Vin Diesel, Jeremy Davies, Giovanni Ribisi,
I forgot that
Barry
was Vin
Pepper.
Diesel.
Yeah, Barry
Oh my
Pepper,
God.
and oh my God, who's the last one? Adam Goldberg from Entourage. That is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I remember every single member of that cast.
No,
they're all
perfect.
so fucking good.
And that's the thing. And here's the thing: is it's good because you have amazing actors given what Spielberg does best: character. Now, here's the issue with Rogue One.
Rogue One is not the best when it comes to character.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
You're gonna shoot me with this next phrase.
No, I'm not, because that is an argument. That is honestly people's number one complaint when it comes to that movie, and I'm fine with that.
Hold on. No, you're gonna really hate this next phrase, though. I think it has zero character. Zero. I felt nothing for... Hold on. I felt nothing for any of those characters throughout that whole movie, and not just because I knew they were gonna die... for 90% of the film. I felt no care for any of those characters. Okay. Because they gave them no backstory. The backstory that they did give people wasn't delivered the right way. Like with Caspian. Cassian. God.
Close enough.
What was Caspian?
Prince Caspian from Chronicles of Narnia.
That was in the recesses of my fucking brain.
That's amazing, too, because I think that's actually my favorite of those Chronicles of Narnia movies that came out.
I never saw past the first one.
Let's not go into that tangent, though. Yeah. So Cassian, backstory delivered within a sentence, so that's understandable.
Backstory delivered within a sentence, and I'm sorry. Who's the actor?
Diego Luna.
I'm sure he's a good actor, but it almost felt like he was just there for a paycheck.
Really?
When he delivered that line of, like, I've been doing this since I was 6 years, I was like, this is so unbelievable.
Here's what I'll say to that, just to that specific line, because you're right. And what I'll say, this is going to be one of the instances, and I've said this before, it's one of the things that I've kind of been coming around on as a critic over the last couple of years. Every single one of those points that you just brought up, 1,000% valid. It's a thing that a lot of critics have brought up as a chief problem with that movie. I acknowledge it, and I understand that it is a flaw with that movie, just for whatever reason. I think it's the Captain Marvel argument all over again. That just doesn't bother me. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just the idea that I'm getting things with that movie that I've always wanted to see in Star Wars. I don't know if it's just the stance that I was in at the time with, the whole, because I'm thinking, we're breaking right into phase 3 of Marvel, and, by that point, Disney was really showing they were trying to copy Marvel's formula with their Star Wars movies, too. Yeah. But between Rogue One, Last Jedi, and then with Solo, that obviously didn't work. All of those criticisms are valid. Here's what I'll say about, to me at least. I knew enough of the story and the lore that I probably wasn't paying as close attention as I should have been, could have been, would have been, whatever grammatical term you want to use there, to the script. So all of the different plot holes didn't bother me. And you're right, what I will say is that if we're talking just strict plot-wise, you're right. If they were going to do a heist, they should have made it chief and first and foremost, and maybe some things that could have sold it for maybe some of the more mainstream audiences is you have the subplot with her dad be what it should have been, a subplot, rather than the primary motivation for the whole movie. Because, and this actually speaks to something else that happened with that movie, which is where, like I said, because how familiar are you with the reshoots on that movie?
Not very. I know more about the story of Solo than I know about Rogue One.
Well, because the story about Solo is it's Justice League all over again, and people just want to do it in order to have another excuse to hate on that movie before it even comes out.
First off, may I say in defense of Solo?
Right, and I like Solo. I like Solo. It's a good movie.
Here's the thing: I like Solo more than Rogue One,
and that's fine. You're perfectly entitled to that.
And the reason why is because you've got Phil Lord and Chris Miller,
who's not a second of the footage of the movie that they shot was used for that movie.
Not at all. But you had them with an actor who, during production, needed an acting coach. And over budget by, what was it?
Something ridiculous. Here's the thing. I heard, was the over budget on them, or was that after they got fired and Ron Howard came on and reshot the whole thing?
No, the over budget was on them, and then Disney...
Oh, that's right, because of the amount of takes that they were doing in order to provide for improvisation. That's
exactly. And they were leaving it all up to improv. But, again, Phil Lord and Chris Miller are two directors who very much know how to get a performance out of their actors.
Yes, agreed. And
in any movie they do. Now, Ron Howard.
Right.
Also amazing at getting performances out of actors.
Depends on the movie, but overall quality. But you're right, he is typically very good with
Let me put it to you this way.
Actors.
Have you ever had a bad time watching Clint Howard in a movie?
When I could recognize him, no. The only problem is I didn't probably recognize him as much as I should have. I literally don't remember who he played in Solo.
So what I'm saying with Clint Howard is whenever Ron Howard directs something, Clint usually shows up.
Right.
Clint Howard gives some of the most believable and genuine performances in some of the most shitty movies I've ever seen.
Such as... I legitimately don't know,
there's a movie
I know he's related to Ron Howard, but, I don't remember seeing him in any movies. Is he his brother? His son?
He's his brother.
Okay.
He's his brother. And so, Clint Howard, because he learned from Ron Howard how to act.
Right. Because of Happy Days and everything.
Happy Days, fucking...
going all the way back to Andy Griffith's show.
Andy Griffith's show, yeah. American Graffiti, all of those.
Yep. To me at least, still George Lucas's best movie that he directed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's not even a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you...
I mean, no need to apologize, but so...
Star Wars doesn't even count to me as a Lucasfilm. I'm so sorry.
It's just gone so far beyond him at this point.
Well, it's not even that. It's fucking Ben Burtt. It's Ben Burtt's movie.
Yeah.
Ben Burtt made the first Star Wars.
Yeah, he really did.
That's the thing.
Well, him and Lucas's wife and the producers at the time.
Spielberg being there to say no.
Spielberg helping supervise. I don't know how much actual contribution. Because the thing that everybody gives him shit for, the thing that everybody seems to forget, Lucas wrote that script for Raiders. That is Lucas's script for Raiders. That's the thing that everybody seems to forget about.
But what I'm saying with Spielberg...
Kasdan was also helping, but that is still Lucas's story.
What I'm saying with Spielberg, though, is thank God for Steven Spielberg being there to tell him no.
Yes. And just people in general being there to tell him no. But the thing about Lucas...
A car salesman. A used car salesman. Are you... a fucking lizard man.
If we,
I hate you.
yeah, if we can,
I hate you so much.
If we get, like I said, because the title of this episode is going to be Game of Thrones, and we literally just spent the first 20 minutes talking about.
I was about to do a tie-in.
Star Trek and Star Wars, but just to wrap this up,
I was about to do a tie-in. Hold on.
But the point being that I also did want to get across before you do your tie-in is Lucas does not deserve the rap that he got for Star Wars. Because
No.
for all the problems with the prequels, because those are bad movies, the ideas that they got across should not be overlooked.
No, not at all.
And just to back up my point, I'm going to go to a quote that I heard from Paul Thomas Anderson that he told John Krasinski last year. Because John Krasinski, obviously while doing promotion for A Quiet Place and everything, so of course everyone wants to talk to him, and also just the fact that he's Jim from The Office, was watching a movie last year. I don't remember
Seems like
what.
the nicest guy.
Seems like it, but you might change your tune after this story. He was watching a movie last year. I cannot remember what the movie was for the life of me, but he came out and he was talking to some press people afterwards, and he was saying, I wasn't a fan of that movie, you know? He was saying he wasn't a fan, and he was going to go into a critique of the movie, right? As mostly anyone would do. You know, he's a human being. He has a right to his opinion. After that interview or whatever, again, I don't remember the specifics of it, Paul Thomas Anderson comes up to him, pulls him aside, and says, you can't say that. He's like, why? He's like, you can't, like, bad talk on that movie in any way or, like, say you didn't like it. And he's like, why? It's my opinion. Why can't I do that? And he's like, because creativity and originality in Hollywood, today at least, is already difficult enough to get across. Where if you want to pitch, things are already significantly harder for us to get things on the big screen, you know? Because think about it, from a filmmaker's perspective, even though, yes, everything's going to Netflix now because it's easy for accessibility, and now people only go to theaters to watch the big Marvel, the Star Wars, or the DC, and it's just the state of cinema that we're in right now, right? Kind of nothing that we can do about it. We're the only movies now, it's what Red Letter Media's been saying for years. The only movies that are in on
Even though
big
the
screen,
best movies that came out last year were all first-time directors.
Agreed.
Thank you.
But the point being that I'm talking, and I'm not talking the first time director, I'm talking the event movies, the ones that make money. Ones that make money. Because remember, Hollywood is a business first and foremost. Keep that stance in mind as well.
Absolutely.
As much as we champion artistic freedom and creativity, Hollywood is a business first and foremost, and they have to go with what's going to get them their buck, which is why you always see these sacrifices in terms of going back to these IPs and basing stuff off of other stuff, because that already has a guaranteed insight.
You want to see Seth Rogen direct a bunch of kids while they swear?
Oh my god.
Go watch it.
Don't even fucking get me started on that. That literally, no joke, might be one of the worst trailers I've ever seen. And the thing that sucks is I like all those kids. They're good actors.
Yep.
Jacob Tremblay, and then the other kid on there is fucking young Tommy from Boardwalk Empire.
See, and here's the thing is I didn't recognize it was Jacob Tremblay without the fucking hair.
Really? I recognize him immediately.
Here's the thing, though, is I have not been following his career since Room.
Oh, okay, that's why. But, so just to wrap up the tangent, is the point being that, so Paul Thomas Anderson, what he's saying to Krasinski is that, look, you can have an opinion, that's fine, but not spin it in a positive way, because that's still groupthink, but think about it in perspective. We're all artists, and we're all trying to get our content seen, and we're all trying to be as original and get our own unique voices across, right? Because the whole business stance of Hollywood, because the whole stance of the individual artist is getting across their own thoughts and processes and view on the world in order to get it across and make other people understand it, versus the idea of Hollywood is distance yourself emotionally so that you can have a palatable mainstream junk fest that people can just buy into and enjoy and not think about it, and that way they'll keep coming back for the next one.
And what did Krasinski say?
It wasn't necessarily what Krasinski said, it's what Anderson, because like I said, I'm taking too fucking long with getting to this point. He
that's fine.
When one of us comes out and critiques another's work, it's another shot against us. Because all that says to, because regardless of what your actual thoughts on it in terms of how to make it better are, the only thing that Hollywood hears is, oh, that's just another idea we can't use. Because somebody didn't like it. And even though it may just be one person,
I agree with that, but
it's weird, and I'm not quoting him right, and it pissing me off because the way that he phrased it, it was phrased so elegantly, and I'm making Paul Thomas Anderson come off as a pretentious artsy
a little bit.
Douche right
I was
now.
Like, that doesn't sound too nice.
But
the problem is I'm also just picturing John Krasinski's face, like.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Like I said, that was Krasinski's expression at first, but afterwards, Krasinski understood what he was trying to go for.
Oh, okay.
And so the point that I'm trying to get across is fucking just look at what people say. Don't listen to it based off of conversation from other people, because they're most likely going to butcher it.
Yeah, I'm still probably going to see what's the new one, Wonder Park or whatever.
Wonder Park. That's that animated movie.
I'm probably going to go and see it. It looks like shit. Everyone's telling me it's shit.
Krasinski and Paul Thomas Anderson are not watching that.
No, of course they're not. Yeah. But what I'm saying, though, is
people are going to go watch A Quiet Place too, I can tell you that. Kill me now, please.
I'm sorry, but that movie, has so many flaws in it in the story. We'll talk about that another time. Well, so to go back real quick for 1 second.
There's going to be so much creaking in the background noise here. It's kind of hilarious.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Why are you apologizing? I've probably been creaking more than you have. I'm spinning around nonstop.
So with talking about Rogue One,
Yes.
which we always seem to come back to.
Always. Well, the Rogue One and just nerd topics in
Yeah.
general.
I loved the idea of a heist film.
Right.
And I understand that you want to make your own film.
Right.
And that's great.
Yes.
But Ocean's 11 for me will always be the perfect heist film.
Right.
And when we talk about characters and we talk about the characters of Rogue One, you look at, you know, if I'm going to compare, I'm going to compare to Ocean's 11.
And that's fine, as you should.
You don't have to give characters a crazy amount of backstory to make them lovable and likable and fun.
Right.
It's what they do in the moment.
Right.
And
Because you're there to tell a story of the present. You're not there. Flashbacks should
Exactly.
only exist in film in order to help enhance the story that you're watching. Not
or to develop characters.
Right, or to
in
develop
a
characters.
way.
Not to distract from the main plot and show you a movie that you would rather be watching. That's bad.
Think about the acrobat.
So, for example, any fucking flashback in any goddamn Zack Snyder movie. Because Zack Snyder doesn't know how to write. But
think about the acrobat. What did we even learn about that acrobat in Ocean's 11? The guy who fits himself, the Chinese guy that fits himself into
he's
the box.
really flexible and
that he was from the circus.
Right.
That's all we needed.
Right.
He still has some of my funniest moments when he's like stuck in the box and like I'm actually caring about this person who I've learned none of his story. Oh, bless you.
Allergy season.
I'm seeing the cloud too.
Allergy season. Gotta love it.
Rough. But like we learned nothing about this character.
Right.
And he has some of the most tense moments in the film for me.
Yeah.
Because watching him try to beat that clock to get out of the cart that they pushed him in is so tense for you. Like, and the way that it's set up and the way that you get to love this character throughout the planning of the heist, you know, you actually care about him due to what they've done with him in the present, not because he's been he was beaten as a kid and forced to be an acrobat and like all of these dark backstory for funny moments. The tone of that film is so screwed up for me. Rogue One.
Right.
The tone is so screwed up for me because you have K2SO, who is the best character.
The best part about the movie.
No backstory. Right. No backstory
but
given.
Is it needed?
No.
Exactly.
Not at all.
Because they give it in one line of dialogue. I'm a reprogrammed Imperial droid. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. And the funniest character in the film. But then you have moments with Baze Malbus and
Chirrut Imwe.
Chirrut Imwe. Good fucking call.
I remember every single one of those.
I don't remember. I couldn't remember. I remembered Chirrut. I couldn't remember Imwe. I wanted to say Umwa or whatever.
Well, if you ask most people, they'll just say Donnie Yen, or even worse, because most people don't know Donnie Yen. Oh, the Asian guy that kicked stormtroopers' asses with a stick.
Yeah. But I remember Baze Malbus, and I don't think his name's even said.
Oh, it's not. Well, Chirrut mentions it once when they're running away from the AT-ATs, and most people just call him Shooty McShooterson.
Shooty McShooterson. With those,
thank you, Screen Junkies, for giving us the new generation of internet trolls.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. But meanwhile, you've got those two dying gloriously and in a very emotional and sad way, and you feel for it. But I felt fucking more when K2SO died.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Because it was a comedy moment, and then all of a sudden it was a not funny fucking
it was not
moment.
funny at all, and it actually became really super tragic and sad.
That is how you do character. That is a good character in a film that has no good characters.
Okay.
Because let me put it to you this way. Take K2SO out and put him in a movie like Solo, where you've got Donald Glover fucking nailing suave but not yet Lando Calrissian suave. You've got Emilia Clarke fucking nailing deceit and deception and like you don't know whose team she's even playing on anymore. Paul Bettany, who is fucking one of the greatest villains.
And also a reshoot character because that was supposed to be Michael K. Williams in that part.
Exactly. Paul Bettany, who is such a fantastic villain. Paul Bettany is...
He really is good in that movie. I honestly think he doesn't get enough credit for that movie.
No. He's a jack of all trades, in my opinion.
He really is.
Because he came in at the end of a shoot and was like, oh, I have to make a character, essentially. You know, I have to learn this character.
And he's one of my favorite Star Wars villains that I've seen on the big screen, honestly.
Yeah, every moment with him is that same tension that I get from the acrobat.
Yeah.
When he's in the room, I'm like, we'll see how he's
And by the way,
feeling.
if you want to know the name of that acrobat, it's the Amazing Yen.
Is it the Amazing
Yen?
I could not remember that. How did you remember that?
Because I've seen that entire trilogy multiple times, and because I remember, for the most part, every single actor in that crew, and for the most part, every single character that they played.
That is fucking amazing. You blow my mind, man.
So now that I've blown your mind multiple times...
Look,
I love Rogue One, and I understand what you're going for.
And
right?
here's my tie-in to Game of Thrones.
How does it tie into Game of Thrones? And does it tie into the heist beyond the wall, though? Because we're going to talk about that.
Okay,
I do want to hear your thoughts on it.
We're going to talk about that whole list that you've sent me.
Right.
And I did not do my list yet.
That's fine.
Only because I wanted to do it here while we talk it out.
Absolutely.
Because I figured you have your list, and I'm
yeah.
sure mine will be a little bit different. So, the way that it ties in is, you've got, look at Game of Thrones, and every time that there's ever been a character that just hasn't worked. Because there have been characters that have not
For all
worked.
the Game of Thrones characters, and to me at least, most of the characters, even the villains have worked, because even the villains have a reason for doing what they're doing.
But there have always been moments in the series where some of the best characters just have a weird moment for me. Okay. Arya's whole arc in the House of Black and White.
Okay, there you go. Absolutely. Okay, I'll give you that because you're right.
Jorah Mormont in general.
What? See, that's the weird thing. I love Jorah.
No, I love... Hold on.
We'll get into specifics.
I love Jorah Mormont. I love him as a character. I think that he has a lot of good moments as a solid fucking character.
Right.
But I think that his main drive should be a little bit more than just
I love Daenerys.
I feel like he should be somewhat like a Peter Dinklage drive to work for Daenerys, except with the love involved. Like, he loves Daenerys, but I think he should also want to champion for her. And lead for her.
See, that's the thing. That's what I do get. See, here's the thing.
I don't get that.
Okay, so now let me provide you my take on Jorah Mormont, because fun fact, Jorah Mormont is one of my top 10 favorite Game of Thrones characters. I'm still working on that list because I go back and forth on the main character, the focus characters all the time, because it's
who's your number one?
For the purposes of Tyrion. Not even a question, Tyrion.
Yeah.
He's the most developed character, and he is the reason why everything on the show happens the way it happens. He is literally no joke. Somebody made it like a YouTube map of like every action that every character on Game of Thrones is made in order to like take them to where they are now. And basically the one that is like, if you think about it, the one that like causes a lot of the major like character tension, and the one who is still remain on the trajectory where they are now, why things happen, is Tyrion. Tyrion's the reason why Jon actually started to act like a fucking man at the wall. Tyrion is the reason why things didn't fall to shit in King's Landing in Season 2. He single-handedly stopped the mob and saved him from Stannis. He saved himself from his own execution by killing his dad after Jaime freed him because of Jaime's love for him. He is the reason why Daenerys came to Westeros. And honestly, why she's still alive, because he's the reason why he kind of reformatted her entire way she was ruling in Meereen and ended up helping her ultimately champion the slave owners. And he is the reason why, ultimately, again, tying back into Season 1, why Jon and Daenerys are together now. Melisandre helped, but without Tyrion, that never would have happened. Tyrion is the number one driving force of the entire show. He's the lifeblood of the show.
However,
and also, just the fact that fucking Peter Dinklage champs it in every single goddamn season and has the best arc to me on the show.
Absolutely. I will say, if you want to talk about the person that's kicked every single event off in this show, the guy who set everything in motion, my favorite character, or tied...
And that's just for plot's sake. I haven't even gotten into my personal reasons for loving him.
So tied for my favorite character, because it's a three-way tie for me, and I know that's so cheap.
It's fine.
But I agree with Tyrion, Jon, Jaime Lannister.
Jaime Lannister has grown on me over the years.
And here's the thing, though. If you think about it, he's the one that kicked off all the events.
He did.
By pushing a kid out a window.
You're right. You were right. And that's the one I am looking forward to the most in this final season when that comes out, is... This is going to be the first time that he's seen Bran since Season 1.
How quick do you think he's going to die?
Not quickly. Not quickly at all. Because he is going to... I don't know if he's going to make it through the battle with the White Walkers in order to kill Cersei. You don't think he is?
No.
Okay. because you've also told me your theory how you think it's going to be Arya with Jaime's face.
I seriously think that this is good. And I've had people argue against me like, but she would have to kill... And I'm like, she doesn't have to kill him. He just has to be dead. Right.
Do you think that 3 episodes... Because I heard the Battle of Winterfell, that's supposed to happen episode 3. That's happening.
Okay.
Episode 3.
And we've gone back and forth
right,
with this.
Yeah, that's 3 episodes. Do you think that's enough to wrap up everything that Jaime's done? Because looking back, I definitely... His last encounter with Cersei at the end of the last season, season 7, didn't feel like it was going to be their last encounter. I feel like I wanted one more encounter between the two of them. But if I think about it over everything that they've done over the last, honestly, 4 seasons, because they've been back together since season 4. Like I said, you had the 2 seasons, and 2 and 3, where Jaime was in the Riverlands being held captive. But season 4 onward, he was basically with Cersei. Cersei let him go on all those little side adventures in season 5 and 6. But season 7, he was pretty much there. So but looking back, it feels a little more. Do you think that was the last time that Jaime and Cersei are ever going to see each other alive? Was at that last encounter with them at the end of season 7, where he found out that she was not planning on helping them, and he left King's Landing to go north on his own?
Yes.
You think that's the last time they're ever going to see each other?
But here's the thing: is yes and no. I think that the moment is going to come where Cersei Lannister has to die.
Right. We know it's coming.
We
know it's coming. She's done too much, regardless of everything of her reasoning for it. Everything that she's done has led her up to this point. And there's no going back to her.
She fucked everything up.
She's done too many despicable things. Her entire motivation and any sort of moral justification for it is gone. Her kids have been dead for 2 seasons. All of her kids have been dead for 2 seasons now because Tommen was the last one to go.
Yep. No, so I think the last scene that we're going to see with the 2 of them together is going to be because Arya is wearing his face. And she's going to be talking about, she's probably going to get word that he died in the battle. But he's going to show up. But it's not going to be him. It's going to be Arya. And Arya is going to be cold-blooded and do the deed that we all need her to do and kill Cersei Lannister.
Okay. And her unborn child, or no? She'll miscarry beforehand.
Ooh, that's tough. I keep forgetting that she's pregnant again.
Yeah, because supposedly that's still legit. I mean, that's the thing about it is that it definitely felt like Cersei, that still had me questioning, is that first off, when Cersei first mentioned it in episode 5, again, which is one of the 2 episodes
I think she was lying.
Really like that.
To be dead honest.
First off, I missed it the first time. I had to rewatch the episode. I'm like, wait, she's pregnant? And I was convinced. I'm like, oh, that bitch is lying. That bitch is lying. I was not convinced.
I feel as though she was lying to keep Jaime.
I'm like, this is a ploy to keep Jaime because she knows that she's losing him. Yeah. She knows. She knows that he is terrified of her after blowing up the Sept of Baelor. She is doing this as a ploy to keep him close. But here's the other thing too, that and why I maybe started to believe it. Hold on. Why I started to believe it is she got Tyrion to fall for it.
I believe it.
In the Dragon and the Wolf, she got Tyrion to fall for it. And Tyrion, all know, is not as dumb as Jaime when it comes to falling for her bullshit. Tyrion has always been able to call her for her bullshit. So if she got Tyrion to believe it too,
how much of the Red Wedding do you think Arya was a witness to? In general, of just watching the
from what we saw, the only thing she saw was the carnage. She only saw what happened was she saw.
And then they knocked her
out. She saw them getting killed. She saw Grey Wolf getting killed. The Hound knocked her out, and she briefly woke up to see them parading Rob's body around with Grey Wind's head attached to it, and then she fell asleep again.
What an episode.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's a great episode, but I have some personal thoughts on season 3.
I know. Well, so I read Alex's review because I'm writing my season 4.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask how that was going too.
It's going good. Yeah. I wanted to see how he wrote his just so I could.
Right, and my whole thing with the recaps for each season is that I want to see different people's take. Like Garrett is doing season 5, I'm repeating after season 2. So
I hope he tears apart. Okay.
He will. Garrett fucking.
I hope he tears it apart.
Garrett hates season 5, and
I do too. Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
And of course, like I said, so here's the thing, right? This is the ultimate juxtaposition and irony of season 5 and 6. Season 5, largely considered by many to be the worst season, has easily one of my favorite episodes of Game of Thrones in it. Season 6, previously my favorite season, but I've started to change my thoughts a little bit upon this rewatch.
Which episode?
Hardhome.
Oh,
Hardhome.
Hardhome.
But to me,
Hardhome's good, though.
To me, one of the best episodes of Game of Thrones ever.
Yeah.
Ever. It's the one spot in season 5 that is stands out because it's Tyrion finally meeting Daenerys, Sansa and Theon having that moment after her brutal rape and her discovering that Theon didn't kill Bran and Rickon, and finally leading Theon to his path to redemption, and then obviously the White Walker attack at Hardhome, which is one of the highlights of the entire series.
Yeah.
It's the first time that you finally understand what a threat these things are, because it's the first time where they actually have the budget
How much of a virus
to
they
make
are.
them attack in full, and you realize, oh my god, the battle of the wall that happened at the end of last season was nothing. Because here's the thing, to put this in perspective, and how crazy it is. The battle of the wall, when it was the Night's Watch fighting the Wildlings, episode 9, again, it was kind of a parallel of Blackwater. I like that fight better, but that's just me, because overall, just my thoughts on season 4. That fight was an entire episode, like Blackwater. Hardhome was the last half an hour of that episode, and it's one of the most brilliant half hours. For me, it's always a toss-up between the battle at Hardhome and the battle in the Spoils of War when Daenerys and her army attack Jaime, because that
was such a good
give that fight
episode.
a little bit more credit, because that's one of the shortest episodes of Game of Thrones, and that entire sequence is only 17 minutes. It's the equivalent of the airport fight sequence in Civil War, which is why I have tended to give a little bit more credit towards the Spoils of War for what they were able to pull off. But
could you imagine if they had dragged out that?
They couldn't have.
That's what I'm saying.
It would have gotten tiresome and cumbersome.
Exactly.
What they did in that sequence, it was perfect, because you got the awesome opening, the build-up and everything. You saw the brilliance of that episode is being able to split up the tension with both sides where you're not necessarily on one side.
Are you as tired as I am of Theon Greyjoy being a little bitch?
No.
I really am.
No, and I'll tell you why. It's because normally I would be, but because I think it's built up so well within his character and his struggle,
yeah.
it has never annoyed me.
I
Not
don't
nearly
disagree.
as much as Arya being chased by the wave, Gangnam style throughout the fucking streets of Bravos after taking 1,700 shots to the gut and doing parkour over the goddamn streets.
Oh my god!
Fuck episode 8, no one. That is the worst, most laziest excuse. Literally, no joke. I will take sand snakes and all the bullshit that we got in season 5 any goddamn day over that fucking piece of shit episode. I hate no one with a burning passion. Oh my god, every single time I've watched that episode, I hated it the first time I watched it. I hated it even more when I did my rewatch.
She's a video
2
game
years
character.
ago. No, that entire episode is that entire sequence is a video game sequence. It feels, besides the fact that there's no sort of moral justification for it, besides the fact that it continues with the Waif's arc, if you even want to call it that, of her just hating Arya for no reason at all, and the fact that realistically, for it taking place in the world of Game of Thrones, it makes no sense. It feels more at home in an Assassin's Creed video game than fucking a Game of Thrones episode. It's one of the worst executions. The resolution, because you know what it is? It's one of those, look, Benioff and Weiss, as much as I love them as creators, have had this tendency to kind of show their hand that when it comes to getting certain characters from point A to B, they're a little bit obvious with it, specifically since they started going out on their own when the show surpassed the books. I've noticed it a lot more and more. It still feels like Game of Thrones, but specifically with Season 7, which again, what was everyone's #1 complaint with Season 7? That it felt rushed, and that it felt like it was taking characters minutes to get to places where it would have taken them almost years and multiple episodes to get to. Where you have Jaime and Brienne taking an entire season to get from the Riverlands to King's Landing and everything that they go through.
Which is very, very short of a fucking walk in general.
But versus Season 7, where you have Daenerys going from Dragonstone to the Reach, and then from and then back to Dragonstone, and then to north of the Wall, and then to King's Landing, all within a matter of episodes. But so like I said, that's where Benioff and Weiss really showed their hand of like, look, when it comes to getting characters from point A to point B in order to set up for the next set of stories, they kind of show their hand. But
the theory that I keep hearing with the fast travel that's been going on in the season,
with specifically season 7,
but
which again, for some reason, did not bother me. Did not bother me in the slightest. I don't know why it bothered so many people.
Well, so the thing is the theory is that they're just cutting out the traveling time,
right?
Because
it's only 7 episodes as opposed to 10,
and that season 7 actually takes place over like months.
And I've been saying that for years now. I've been saying that for years. I'm like, look, the only reason why, and what I will say is that this is a legitimate point that people have brought up, is that I'm like, the only reason why it feels like things are going so fast, where you see Sam leaving, where literally and what I will say is that where in season 6, right? Sam Wells Harley is in 3 episodes, right? He's in episode 3, he's in episode 8, and then he's in the final episode, right? Sam's only in 3 episodes in season 6.
Yeah.
Where you have him, where you literally have him taking the entire season to get from the Wall to Old Town in order to begin to study to become a maester.
Yeah.
But in season 7, episode 5, he leaves the Old Town in order to go back to Winterfell, and episode 7, he's there. So the whole thing is that people are watching it. Oh, it takes him too quick to get from place to place to place. I'm like, but if it was 10 episodes, you wouldn't, and it was spaced out a little bit more, you wouldn't be complaining.
Or if it was, actually, I disagree. They'd be complaining for a different reason.
They'd be complaining that it was taking too long.
Exactly.
That's what I mean. There's
like,
no satisfying people. That's why I don't.
Why are we spending fucking 3 episodes watching Sam just go to fucking Old Town?
Exactly.
Because you wanted it, apparently.
That is why, when it comes to those kinds of criticisms towards Game of Thrones, I don't buy into those types of criticisms.
No, neither do
because
I.
Those are the types of criticism that sound like nitpicking and complaining to me. When it's like, oh, where'd they get the chains to fucking get the dragon out of the water? You know, they didn't have that. When I'm like, who fucking cares where they got the chains?
They probably just have fucking
I'm
chains.
like, you literally just saw the Night King throw a fucking spear, shoot a dragon, kill a dragon, have it drown in the water, and then bring it back to life. And in the next episode, you see him riding it and using a fucking undead ice dragon to tear down the wall. And you're fucking complaining about where they got the chains from? Like, fuck people.
That's one of the theory talk,
look,
man.
Don't get me wrong. Like I said, obviously I'm a critic. I champion criticism. Because, again, criticism is what is needed in order to keep films original. That is fucking nitpicking. That is nitpicking to a T, and it pisses me off because they try to pass so much nitpicking off as actual criticism, and that is what YouTube film criticism has devolved into, and it pisses me the fuck off.
I can explain it, okay? And part of the blame is on Matt Pat. It's theory criticism.
Right.
It's where you go...
And I should watch a Patrick H. Williams video about that, too.
It's going...
Because what it is, you're right, but sorry to keep interrupting you, but what it is it's spinning off theories in order to get people to click and in order to get the conversation going, because that's how YouTubers make their money.
Yes. Well, and so I think that Matt Pat does it best in that his theories have always been, you know, this could happen, but I'm probably wrong.
Right.
He will openly admit, like, you can watch this video, but I'm just here to do science.
Right.
And
making it known that it's his opinion, not actual fact.
And like,
then what the internet does is they spin it off and make it sound like actual fact, as the internet does.
But, and what comes out of that sort of, you know, subsection of, like, critic is the theory critic, which is, you know, they don't have chains, so maybe this can happen, or, you know, if they have chains, then they probably got it from here, and this fits in with my theory and it's like, it's that nitpicking just so that your theory can work.
Right.
And it's fucking so annoying and stupid to
It's
me.
really dumb. Like, and to bounce off that point, I've recently gotten in. Have you heard about Patrick H. Willems?
No.
He is a film. He's not a film theorist, but he's oh my god, what's the word? He releases several video essays on, like, perhaps, I'm not gonna say contrarian opinions, but what he does is, for lack of a better word, he does contrarian opinions that he backs up. That does make sense. Like, he gives legitimate reasons for why Alien Covenant and Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom both are not terrible, but, like, it's not that they're not good movies, but it's kind of like a Star Wars prequel arguments, where a fact of where the ideas that the movies bring up are different than anything that the franchise has brought out before. And he actually goes into arguments as to why Alien Covenant and Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom are better than Prometheus and Jurassic World.
Why hasn't anyone cloned a human yet?
And they make sense, too. That's the thing that I love about it, is that he's one of the only people on the internet that doesn't just shout for the sake of shouting and being heard.
Seriously?
He makes sense, and he has a voice and an opinion with them. Now, here's the thing.
Can I also say, though, fuck that arc. Fuck the fucking cloning granddaughter bullshit. I hate that. I'm sorry, but I haven't had a platform to say this on yet. I understand that this is a thing that would probably exist in the universe. And it doesn't shock me that Hammond had a friend who he doesn't talk to anymore because he cloned his daughter. And just convinced her that she's his granddaughter. makes sense to me. I get it. I get that it exists.
Again, what it
But
is
fuck the entire ending.
because
to
you know
that
what it
movie.
is. Because you're right. What you just described, what it is, it's exactly the same as the Star Wars prequels. It's an interesting idea with some of the worst execution we've ever seen, and I don't blame.
How
Jay,
dare she?
and-
How dare she press that fucking
Seriously,
button?
and
by
I
the way.
don't blame. Here's the thing about that, and just to resolve that thing on Jurassic World. And what I will say is, I'm gonna have you subscribe to Patrick H. Woods and watch the video on both
absolutely.
the problem with the Jurassic Park sequels in general and how that builds into the problems of Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. But even so,
Absolutely.
but to wrap that thing up, what I blame that on is not J.A. Bayona, because like I said, Fallen Kingdom is one of the best looking Jurassic Park films that I've seen.
Very much so.
Quite possibly
Oh my
since
God.
the first one. But what
That fucking shot, it's the trailer shot, but it's the fucking, it's 2 minutes,
Right.
it's 2 seconds
Right.
out of the film. But that shot with the big ass fucking water thing that I can't remember.
It's a
the name
dope
of.
shot. The not the Megalodon, the Mosasaurus.
The Mosasaurus,
when it's
thank
coming
you.
out, right?
When it's coming through that wave, on that shot is so beautiful,
Right.
and ominous and creepy and scary. The idea of that fucks with my head so
Right.
much.
And so, but to wrap up that point, what it is that he talks about how the problem is with Colin Trevorrow. We know this, but the reason, and again, he brings up actual reasoning for things that people bring up. It's just like, oh, Colin Trevorrow is the problem. Colin Trevorrow is the problem. Colin Trevorrow is the problem. But they're like, what? And if you look at it, the reason, it's all over his other work. It's all over Book of Henry. It's all over like any of these. I haven't seen Safety Guaranteed, Not Guaranteed, which is his first film that he did, the one with Aubrey Plaza and Mark Duplass. But
I meant to watch that, but I never did.
The thing about it is that the Colin Trevorrow's problem with that franchise is that he legitimately does not know what he wants to do with it.
Yeah.
He doesn't know whether he wants to make it a big popcorn blockbuster action flick where it's just people getting eaten by dinosaurs, or if he actually wants to say something. He legitimately does not know, and he does not know how to get his point across. So as a result, we have these confusing, jumbled messes where, again, with Jurassic World, the first 20 minutes where they're actually explaining how possibly the park could be brought back open and what problems with it are interesting, and then the rest of it devolves into a mindless dinosaur chase.
It's just a monster movie.
Exactly, it just becomes a monster movie. Same thing with Fallen Kingdom. But I'm telling you, watch Patrick H.
I
Williams'
will,
video.
absolutely.
Like, honestly, subscribe to him. I'm telling you, like, even if you don't necessarily like his opinion or his personality or his takes on certain things, the points that he brings up are worth mentioning. But so, to bring it back to Game of Thrones real quick.
Yeah, I was just about to say, let's hop into Game of Thrones.
He does. So Patrick's video that he does this one video that is one of my favorite videos that I've ever done on plot holes. And the way that he gets across some of his ideas on plot holes may come off as a little bit snobbish and a little bit elitist, where some of it may sound like he's basically saying, shut up about problems in movies and just watch them mindlessly. That's not what I think he's trying to say, but I can understand, based on the way that he presents his material, how that may come across as such. That I understand. But he brings up some ideas on plot holes and really differentiate how the internet has, and again, I blame this mostly on what you said, theorist videos about how generating theories in order to spawn into how nitpicking has become the new form of film criticism on YouTube, and how it's largely devolved into...
And Matt Pat's even talked about how he's like, a lot of people are saying that theories are, and I agree with them in the sense that, like, I've tried in my videos mainly to tell people these are just theory. Literally all my episodes end with that, but that's just a theory.
Right, exactly. So the whole thing, right, with a plot hole in a movie, because I brought this up before, right, is why is it that people only talk about plot holes in bad movies, but when or movies that they don't like obviously the big one is The Dark Knight Rises, because a lot of people don't like that movie, versus but nobody seems to notice plot holes in good movies. Like, there's 1.5 million plot holes and errors and little fuck ups in some of the best movies, like Lord of the perfect example, the Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, right? Why is it that when the Rohirrim are attacking the Uruk-hai, who have Merry and Pippin outside of Fangorn Forest, when Merry and Pippin run into Fangorn, why is it that when they're trying to untie their ropes in the one shot, it's in the cut right before it cuts to the daytime with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli arriving, why is it that in that shot you have Pippin in the one scene trying to untie his ropes, and then when he flips over, all of a sudden they're magically untied, but then when they cut back to it later on, he's still tied again. Mm-hmm. That's a plot hole, that's an error, but nobody talks about that one, right?
Here's the thing.
Meanwhile, I am still hearing, fucking 7 years later, I am still hearing people complain, oh, how did Batman get from the Middle Eastern country all the way to Gotham with no explanation?
But how did he?
Because
he's fucking Batman.
Yeah, you're right. That is my answer. I'm like, yeah, because he's fucking Batman, is because that's not important to the actual goddamn story.
Yeah.
It's not.
And so
why? And okay, how about
the big plot hole with Lord of the Rings. Hold on.
Right.
The big plot hole with Lord of the Rings that people have been saying for fucking years.
Why did they just use the Eagles?
Why didn't they just use the
Because
Eagles?
it would distract from the actual story, and because if they did that, the movie would be over in 3 seconds. Because movies are about creating an interesting dynamic.
Exactly. And I was half expecting, and I'm kind of upset that he didn't do something like this.
Right.
I was half expecting in the new Hobbit movies, when they use the Eagles again, that you have a side thing where one of the Eagles can speak English or fucking whatever.
Right.
With just so the audience can understand. Or you can even have fucking Gandalf just squawking like a bird. I think that would be funny as hell.
Right. But
you have a moment where it's like, now we're not always going to come and save you.
Right.
Or whatever. And just do something
and
like that.
And like I said, and people know, it's kind of a point now in pop culture, just with the Lord of the Rings example, where, look, people know about the Eagles thing. It has literally gotten to the point where with the last couple of how it should have ended with the Hobbit movies, I think with the last one, they literally just got to a point where they literally had Bilbo saying, no more goddamn Eagles, and they have Gandalf saying, but they solved every problem to the point.
I remember
that.
that.
To the point where how it should have ended is almost going out of their way to say, yeah, that's the fucking point, is if they did use the Eagles every goddamn time, there wouldn't be any problems, there wouldn't be any conflict, and there wouldn't be any fucking
Hey Dom,
movie.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why didn't Fury just call Captain Marvel back when the aliens were first invaded?
Right. Why didn't, in Goblet of Fire, why didn't fucking Voldemort just have Barty Crouch Jr. fucking force Harry's hand on the portkey at any goddamn moment? Why in fucking literally the list could go on and on and on. Why in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, how was he able to cling onto the sub for the entire trip to that Greek island? How fucking, you're right, and this is another one that people have pointed out. You're right, Indiana Jones has no effect on the actual plot of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that's the brilliance of it. If he had literally done nothing, the exact same thing would have happened. The Nazis would have brought the Ark to the island, and they would have all been vaporized.
Exactly.
Why in fucking literally the list goes on. I can literally do this all fucking day. Why in what's another popular example? Oh Jesus, there's so goddamn many.
There really are. Why didn't Ariel just write it down?
Right.
Like in Little Mermaid, why didn't she just write down, "Hey, kiss me"?
Right, exactly. Like, why didn't... yeah, exactly. That's a perfect example. You're right. Why didn't she fucking write it down? Why?
Because we need a story.
Yeah, because what happens is that you're not thinking about these things because you're invested in the story.
Yeah.
Right? And because you're right. And this is an example that Patrick brings up. Why, in Goblet of Fire, didn't... Again, Barty Crouch Jr. in disguise as man, I just... put his hand on the fucking portkey, because that would distract from the actual tournament, because the whole point is, if you actually fucking paid attention, is that the whole point is to make it as covert as humanly possible, to get Harry through the entire Triwizard Tournament, in order to get him to Voldemort, in order to fucking bring Voldemort back to power in the most covert way possible. That way, he could have made it look like Harry died as an accident in the Triwizard Tournament, because that's a thing that people do, and he would have come back to power, and nobody would know about it, and he's able to fucking... and again, it's proven, and this is the brilliance of the story, through sheer... and continuing in Harry's arc, is that in continuing through sheer dumbest of luck is the only reason, and again, through magic, because magic plays a part, is how Harry is able to escape and warn the world that Voldemort is alive, and it continues in his struggle to realize, no, I can't keep skirting by
I will say, though,
accidents. I need to actually start preparing myself and people for this upcoming war, because shit is about to hit the fan.
I will say...
Oh, but
I
Voldemort...
wasn't too big on Parents Ex Machina.
Right, and but again, it's magic, and with magic, there's always going to be things. But again,
fucking magic, it's just fucking magic.
That's personal opinion, and that's not an actual problem with the movie.
Yeah.
And my problem, again, bringing this back to Game of Thrones, is people trying to justify nitpicks, because that's all these are, as nitpickings, as actual problems. They're not. They're not. I'm sorry. I know that the internet would like to think this way, but Batman getting from the pit in wherever the fuck he was in Dark Knight Rises back to Gotham, that is not a problem with the movie. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not.
I was born in it. I'm sorry. I just have that fucking stuck in my head.
It's not.
And but now that we can get back to Game of Thrones.
But yeah, and the chains of how they brought up the dragon and then bouncing all over the continent, who fucking cares?
Well, now that we're
seriously,
now that we're just at about an hour.
Yeah, just about an hour.
Let's talk.
I would like to keep this under 3 hours if possible.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, so
I
think
wanted to
we
bring it back
do...
to Jorah as well and bring about that character. But if you want, by all means.
Well, no. So I was gonna say. So I understand, and I understand Jorah's importance, and that makes sense.
Right, and everything.
And I just feel like he's sort of a two-dimensional character in certain aspects of how he's written, to where he can be more.
Okay.
That's my biggest thing.
So
with
how
Jorah.
about this? How about you give me some specific examples, and I'll be able to tell you which of those may be validated and which of those are specific things that come from the book.
Well,
you know?
okay, so well, I've read the books.
Right, I have too, multiple times. I'm on my 4th time reading them.
Yeah, I know. It's
How
fucking.
much you know? I haven't told you them before.
Well, no, but I imagine you would.
See, now I'm fucking nitpicking.
Yeah, you motherfucker.
I know, I'm the worst.
No, but so the one that always stands out in my mind, and this is really my only one example that I can come up with right off the top of my head, is when he's like, I'm gonna go find a cure for grayscale for you.
Does he say that though?
He does. He says she.
He
well,
doesn't explicitly
no.
say
So
that,
she
though.
says, find a.
Go. I will not allow you to die.
You go
find a cure because I'm gonna need you when I take over because I'm gonna need you by my side. But
But
here's the thing.
here's the problem.
And
Hold
that's
on,
one of
hold
my
on.
favorite moments
Thank
in
you
that
so
entire
much.
goddamn season.
But thank you so much for saying it exactly how you said it. You said, because I'm gonna need you in the wars to come.
Okay.
Will she? Because I don't fucking think so.
Let me explain why she will need him. Because you're right. If we're talking just from a practical, logical sense, you're right.
What has he done?
He's
What has
another,
he done?
He's another expendable member beside, in terms of giving her advice, and being another old guy that gave her advice. Yeah, she had Sir Barristan for that last season, and unfortunately he passed, and just the way that Sir Barristan went out in one of the most badass ways possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fucking, you're right. She has Grey Worm, she has Tyrion, she has Varys, she has
She
Missandei,
has her generals.
Dario. At the time, she had Dario. What the fuck does she need Jorah for? I'm gonna explain it to you right now. Because she is a human being with actual emotion, right? And regardless of everything that he has done to her over the past, she recognizes that. And again, bring it back to human beings and why Game of Thrones is so brilliant, because Game of Thrones gives us three-dimensional human being characters with flaws and emotions and who do not make the right choices all the fucking time. It is that she recognizes that despite everything that they've been through, right? Him betraying her, him go reporting to Robert behind his back. Yeah, sure, he may have loved her, even though, like I said, he's like 30 years older than her. Hold on.
Wait.
Before you go into the tangent,
No,
I gotta
No, so what just real quick, which that's another thing that I have a problem with, is I understand her being upset with him for betraying her.
Right.
That makes sense.
That's justified.
That's
a justifiable offense, and she pays him
for 3 fucking seasons? Because doesn't that come out in 4, if I'm
End
not
of
mistaken?
4, she banishes him, right? Season
Yeah.
5, for the first half, he's mostly absent until he kidnaps Tyrion
And
from
shows
Varys
back up
and
at the
brings it back to her.
competition.
What happens is she banishes him again. He shows up at the competition. The Sons of the Harpy attack. She leaves. She's gone.
Yeah.
And he's just there. And then Tyrion assigns him and Dario to go out and find her and bring her back. And then in season 6, when she does her whole bad thing, burning down the Khalisar, killing all the Khals and taking control of every Dothraki, that's when he has the little moment of like, I'm gonna leave now. And then she's like, no, I need you. So,
Right. But what I'm saying though is why did it take? So that was the end of 6. So
and it's middle of 6, halfway through 6, and then he comes back to her in season 7.
2 seasons.
Okay.
Let's just say 2 seasons.
2 seasons, right?
Why did it take 2 seasons of this show for her to get over the fact that not only, yes, I get that he betrayed her, but he saved her from the poison way back in season 1. He's watched her back every time Robert has sent someone, because in the books, it's a couple more times, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, here's the funny thing about that. In the books, I'm pretty sure the wine merchant is the only time that somebody tries to
Is
attack
it?
her
I
with
could've sworn.
Robert at least. With Robert at least.
Oh, okay,
What
okay.
they do is they change a little bit of thing. What they do is they change from the translation from the books to the show. They change a little bit of the ways in which Sir Barristan joins her. Where what happens is there's a character in the books who is not in the show at all called Strong Belwas. He's a eunuch and he's a former slave from the Fighting Pits of Meereen. I'm actually pretty sure he's the one that gets her to go for Meereen. And what happens is that when she's in Astapor, she meets Strong Belwas and she meets Sir Barristan. Only at the time, Sir Barristan is going by the name Arstan Whitebeard, and he is serving Strong Belwas as Strong Belwas' squire. And what happens is Jorah doesn't recognize him because of the beard, and he doesn't actually. So in the show, Sir Barristan reveals himself as Sir Barristan in the first episode of season 3 and helps her take over Astapor. In the show, he doesn't reveal himself to her until they take Yunkai when Miro, the Titan's bastard, the leader of the Second Sons, who in the show Dario killed. When he took control of the Second Sons in the show, which, fun fact, he is actually the leader of the Stormcrows. Miro is the leader, the Second Sons actually is led by somebody else, and the Second Sons actually end up betraying her in the books. That's a whole lot of other characters and minutia that the show merged into one, understandably so, because in the books, Miro disguises himself as an Unsullied and tries to kill her. And Arstan saves her, kills Miro, reveals himself as Sir Barristan, and at the same time reveals Jorah's treachery. Because he knew about Jorah's treachery the entire time, because in the books, he served in the Small Council. Versus in the show, he did not serve on the Small Council, therefore he was not aware of Jorah's treachery until Varys' spy, again, little bit of a logic gap and a narrative gap when the spy gives Sir Jorah's pardon letter to Sir Barristan. But again, in the show, there's an explanation for that as to why that happens, because the whole point is to cause dissension within the ranks, because that's Tywin's plan in order to try and serve for the future and make sure that she never comes back to Westeros. So that's the whole thing, and that's when Jorah is revealed. So that's the difference there. But in terms of, because like I said, I've said this before,
so going back to
season
the
1
question.
is a pitch perfect representation of the books, and I'm pretty sure the only time that an assassin tries to kill her is the wine merchant, which is the only instance from the book. It's the only instance we see in the show where an assassin from Robert attempts to kill him. Like you said, Jorah never actually makes an attempt on her life, and that is the only time where he attempts to defend her. So, in going back to it, it is because she realizes that throughout thick and thin, he has been there for her. And whether she feels for him romantically or not, she understands, and it's helped with Tyrion.
By the way,
Tyrion a lot.
It's a pretty big no from me.
Right.
She does not feel the same way at all.
Obviously, that's a given though. That's been made pretty obvious, and I think he's aware of it to a certain sense.
Hey, she's busy getting dicked down by Jon Snow.
By Jon Snow, by Dario, from a bunch of other guys. But the point, and this is something that I actually think the show does better than the books. Heresy, I know, good.
Hold on. First off.
Right.
The biggest thing with Game of Thrones for me, and you might disagree with this, is you have to separate the mediums.
Yes.
You can't
have to.
If you love the
must.
books, that's great.
Right.
Love the books. If you want to love the show, then you gotta love the show by itself. You can't focus on the books and the show.
And so that's why
a combined medium.
Right. That is why largely what I do now is whenever I hear the criticism for any work of like, oh, that's not how it happened in the book, I immediately disregard it and say that's not legit criticism, because that doesn't actually affect the quality of the show. It has no bearing or effect on the quality of the show. That's why anytime when any of the Harry Potter movies, going back, whenever anybody can like, oh, that's not how it happened in the book, I'm like, no, that's not a legit criticism. Because it's physically impossible to adapt everything that happens in the book.
Have you read the fucking Goblet of Fire?
It's the second largest book after Order of the Phoenix.
Bitch is thick.
I'm rereading it right now.
Yeah.
It is thick.
And it's got a lot, and I understand the whole house elf thing is very important in the book.
It's not for the purpose of the narrative. It's
No,
not. It plays in no effect towards the actual plot and narrative of what is going on. But so for Game of Thrones with Jorah, at that point she realizes that regardless of everything that's happened in the past, he's betrayed her, everything. She realizes that whatever happened, because keep in mind too, the other thing that Game of Thrones does so well, Game of Thrones handles passages of time, at least for the first 6 seasons, so well. Where when you feel like it's been years since the first season, like the show makes you aware of that through, I don't know if it's the set design, the camera work, the way that they do the makeup, the way that they write the scripts, whatever, you feel like it has been, by the time you were there in season 6, you feel like it has been years since the first season. You feel that the characters have been through some shit. It feels
it's been fucking years.
Because again, this is the brilliance of the show, because you feel like you're watching real characters that you've grown and changed with. You feel the passage of time, which again may speak to a lot of people's problems with season 7.
Well,
and by that point,
just look at Macy Williams and Sophie Turner.
Yeah.
Look at how they've grown
and
up.
Isaac Hempstead Wright, Bran.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God! Don't even talk.
Oh man.
First off, controversial statement.
Okay, you don't like Isaac Hempstead Wright and Bran.
Oh no, I love him.
Okay,
I think he's a great actor.
I liked him too.
I think he's a great actor. I think he fits the role perfectly. I fucking hate Bran in season 7.
Okay, that's understandable.
I hate how creepy the dude is.
That's understandable.
It's very out of character for me, because at the end of season 4,
it's a little bit of an abrupt shift, and again, having the entire season where he just wasn't there didn't help in the slightest. But
let me put it to you this way: season 4, at the end, he was cracking jokes all the way up. Like, he's still being like a cheeky bitch, like all the way through the north of the wall. Then season 5 happens,
where he's gone.
Season 6, he's learning from the
Three-Eyed Raven.
Oh, by the way, Max von Sydow.
Great recasting there.
Best fucking recast I think I've ever
Up
seen.
there,
on
definitely
the show.
up there, because like I said, Game of Thrones is notorious for the recast game. They even had one last season too.
Yeah.
They recast Sam's brother, Dickon, where he was played by a different actor in season 6. Fun fact, the actor who played him in season 6, Freddie Stroma, is actually another Harry Potter alumni, Cormac McLagan from season 6 himself.
All of them are fucking Harry Potter.
Osha is Tonks. Walder Frey is Filch.
Catelyn Stark was Hermione's
Catelyn
mother.
Stark was Hermione's mother. Fucking Grand Maester Pycelle is the voice of Aragog.
Exactly.
From season 2. What's his name?
Fun.
Theon's right-hand man. Dagmere Cleftjaw is one of the Carrows in season 7.
If you go through
I have them all.
But I mean, if you go through the trivia on IMDb, it's always like trivia about the show, bullshit about the books, who was in Harry Potter. Right. That's essentially how the trivia breaks down.
And keep in mind, too, whenever we bring up books, we're not going out of our way to diss George R.R. Martin's contribution, but definitely, what I will say is that this is definitely one of those instances where George R.R. Martin, I feel like, didn't have an ending in mind and kind of didn't want to. Because the whole thing that keeps Game of Thrones going is Game of Thrones is based off of people and how the constant struggle...
Well, so he's already written the last paragraph.
Yes?
Yeah. He said in an interview back when the show was first being created, and I read this, again, it's IMDb trivia, so I don't know how valid it is.
Who knows?
I've done research on it, and I've found the interview clip, and it seems kind of valid. The last paragraph essentially boils down to, and the winds whipped across the plain as either he hasn't decided whether or not it's going to be snow or sand, as snow/sand blows across a field of graves, marking the dead from the great battle.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Because here's the thing about it, is that Martin is one of those guys who I feel like was very similar to David Chase, where because, again, he's making a show about human beings, right?
Yeah.
Human beings, not television characters. And I think there has to be a big distinction between those two, because human beings are not television characters, and television characters can be human beings.
Look at the contrast between the characters in Twin Peaks versus the characters in the show in Twin Peaks.
Exactly.
How, it's like, here's real people having fucking problems.
Right.
Here's a soap opera that's parodying everything that you're seeing.
Right.
And showing, like, this is what this show would look like if I actually decided to make a soap
Exactly.
opera.
And that's just David Lynch for it. David Lynch loves doing stuff like that. But the point, and this is actually a thing that I noticed very similar.
David Lynch so perfect?
Because he's David Lynch.
Oh my God.
And that I actually noticed comparing it to, obviously, one of the biggest influences of Game of Thrones, The Sopranos, which, again, is basically the influencer for every single great dramatic TV show that we've had over the last 20 years.
Yep.
Which is where, because David Chase and George R.R. Martin, specifically with the books, are writing shows about human beings, they're just, from a logical standpoint, there is no sort of ending, typical, like, for lack of a better word, mainstream television ending that works, that would benefit, and that would satisfy everywhere. Because again, so just to compare this to The Sopranos for a little bit, the cut to black, that pissed everyone off, right?
Yeah.
Except here's the thing, what do you do if you don't go to cut to black? Logically speaking, within the purposes of that world, there are only three ways that show is... No, hold on. There are only 3 ways that show ends. You kill Tony, you send him to jail, or you turn him into a rat.
You kill
Tony. No, and here's the thing. You say it.
I know.
None of those are satisfying.
No.
None of those. You know why? Because every single one the audience would be able to expect and predict. And Chase's, I actually just read the Sopranos Sessions, which is read by Matt Zoller Seitz and Alan Sepowitz, 2 critics who largely studied the show over the last 2 years and released the book for the last 20-year anniversary. The whole thing about Chase is that Chase is like, well, yeah, if the audience has already thought about it and done the work, why are we even bothering to do it? We're already telling them shit that they already know.
Can I put it to you in a bit of a better example?
Okay, sure.
Okay, Sopranos should have ended how Breaking Bad ended.
Okay.
Because in Breaking Bad, Walter White is shot. He's dying. He falls down after caressing the fucking tubs or whatever, and I've just started to rewatch Breaking Bad, so it's on my mind. I fucking love that.
Except here's the problem, is that once you finish your statement, which I know how you're going to end, I'm going to completely debunk your theory and why fucking Sopranos should not have ended the way the Breaking Bad did.
No. So I know, you know what I'm about to say.
Right, it's the basic idea of like the character, the character's still breathing, right? So it's the ambiguity.
And that's fine, and that's all well and good. I just think that I understand that Sopranos had to end the way it did. I do respect that.
Right.
Like,
I've come around on it too, because everybody that said,
oh my
how
God,
would you have ended it? And you think about it and you're like, you're right. Any sort of traditional means of ending with these types of gangster narratives, people either would have been able to predict it, and that's not satisfying.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you.
Where granted, there was another idea to just basically end it, like, with a pullout from Holstein's, where, again, it's just Tony continuing, life goes on, whatever. Again, continuing with the whole kind of cinema verite, very realistic feeling of the show, where, again, the whole brilliance of the show is that you're watching a show about human beings and all their ugliness, even though, again, it is fucking gangsters and doing despicable deeds, but they still feel like you're watching real people, which is the brilliance of it. And, again, it feeds into that feeds into Game of Thrones, where, because those are shows about human beings, and I'm actually going to get into how that ties into Breaking Bad, because those are shows about human beings, and human beings have no sense of resolution, because human beings do not have structure, the way that narratives play out. Real life is not a story, right? It doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't have a structure, and real life is not always nice, and it doesn't always have satisfying endings. I think that with Martin's whole thing is that because the struggles of Game of Thrones, always, 100%, every single struggle that's come out of Game of Thrones has resulted from the actions of human beings being shitty towards each other, because that's what they are.
Yeah.
It's basically the idea of that the conflict was going to be never ending, to the point where literally I'm pretty sure his only solution was to have the White Walkers kill everybody.
No,
because
seriously.
That's the only way to end that, because you keep going with the humans and the conflict will never fucking end.
Well,
which is a thing that I think Benioff and Weiss are retconning for the show, obviously, because I don't think it's going to be literally everyone dies. I mean, I've been saying for the last couple of years that everyone's going to die as a joke. But, again, at least from Martin's viewpoint, I don't think there's any other way to end it.
Here's the problem, though, is I could see Benioff and Weiss doing that, too.
And no joke, I would be cool. I would be okay with it.
Yeah.
I would legitimately be okay with that if you have the White Walkers win.
Well, so here's the one thing that gets me with that, though, is I know that that's not going to happen.
Right.
Because
it's HBO and it's TV, and like I said, because
and they
the last couple seasons
and they want to leave it open for those spin-offs, man.
They do.
You said it, Hollywood's a business.
Hell yeah.
They got Arya's Wolf Adventures.
Yep.
They've got, by the way,
which was still an emotionally, such a gut punch moment. Again, another reason why I might be a little bit preferential towards season 7, and I know people complain about nostalgia.
Was that not Nymeria? I'm so confused.
It was Nymeria. It was 1,000% Nymeria.
But everyone's like, that wasn't actually Nymeria. And I'm like, that looks like it.
What? That was Nymeria.
Okay.
First off, it's a direwolf in the middle of the fucking Riverlands. How the fuck is it not Nymeria?
Right. Okay,
Who's gonna be Lady? Lady's been dead for years.
Yeah.
Grey Wind's dead. Summer's dead north of the wall. Shaggy Dog got his head chopped off. And Ghost, at least to our knowledge, is fucking still with John, even though you didn't see him for all of the rest of season 6 and 7, because apparently because they had to put all of their CG budget into the dragon, so they couldn't bring in the direwolf. Which, speaking of which, every time it's so funny because every time I see the direwolves move in these seasons, it's kind of really obvious that it's CG.
Well, no, so I do I was interested watching because I've been collecting them all on Blu-ray. I've been getting all the seasons, and I watch because I love commentary and I love and how they do certain special effects and how much of forced perspective they use when it comes to the direwolves.
It's incredible.
Amazes me.
So good.
I'm
so fucking good.
This is some Peter Jackson style fucking forced perspective.
And I love it.
Yeah.
And it does look a little bit forced, pun intended. But but anyway, so going back to oh Jesus, I already forgot where I was going.
Well, so we were talking about how we were going to have it end.
Okay, so and how that connects to Breaking Bad, right? So the whole thing with the Sopranos and Breaking Bad, and why that differentiates from Breaking Bad is because as fucking good as Breaking Bad, Boardwalk Empire, and Mad Men go to, because those are the two things that always go on, right? Because the whole thing about Mad Men and Boardwalk Empire, fun fact, is because the creators of those two shows, Matthew Weiner and Terrence Winter, both started off as writers in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Terrence Winter came on in season 2, and Matthew Weiner joined in season 5, and they have both and they basically owe their entire careers as it is now to David Chase, and it's great. The thing about it is that Breaking Bad is Vince Gilligan. Vince Gilligan, to our knowledge, has not been associated with David Chase. Vince, and as great as Breaking Bad is, and as amazing as Walter White's entire arc is throughout the entire show, Breaking Bad is not a story about human beings. Breaking Bad is it's a story about a character, and as much as we love that show, it still has a structure to it. Yes. And I'm not saying that The Sopranos and Game of Thrones don't have structure to them.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying at all, because you need a structure in order to make a narrative like that work.
Do you imagine it's the fact that it's HBO versus AMC?
No, I don't, because Mad Men was on AMC, and Mad Men has a lot of elements that are very similar to The Sopranos.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I fucking hate Mad Men.
I completely understand that. I understand that it's not for everyone.
Well, it's not just that, but I can't get... It's not that I hate it. I can't get through the first season.
Right. It's a pacing thing. And
four episodes in,
Matthew Weiner is very, very, very deliberate with his pacing, and that's just a personal preference.
Okay,
I know people who love that. I know people who hate it. I'm currently halfway through season 3. I enjoy what I've seen, but Mad Men is definitely a show I have to take my time on. It's not a show that I can
not taking anything away from John Hamm as Don Draper.
John Hamm, Matthew Weiner, the entire writing staff, every cast member involved in that show. Nothing against them. It is one of the most immaculately made and very impressive shows that I've seen.
See, and the problem is I love Alison Brie, so I want to tough it out.
Right.
Because I love everything that she's ever been in, and John Hamm. John Hamm is one of
and this, again, is what I'm going to go to. And the key difference why, unfortunately, when it came to it, Mad Men never had a shot over Breaking Bad, because Breaking Bad only premiered a year after Mad Men. Breaking Bad is a show about a character who goes through an arc throughout the entire show. Mad Men is a show about human beings meant to act as embodiments of a specific time period, because Mad Men, ultimately, the story is not about the character, because again, the story is about the time period.
Yes.
That's what it is, which again goes back to Sopranos. Sopranos is the story of a genre and genre expectations concerning it, and real human beings interacting in that type of world. Same thing with Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is not a fantasy story. It is not about characters it is not about an inset narrative, for lack of a better word. Again, I need to come up with different ways to use it, because again, it still has a narrative, it still has a structure. It's just Game of Thrones is telling the story of human beings within this type of an environment and a setting. Mad Men is about human beings within the type of environment that we would see, like, from the 60s. Sopranos is about human beings in that sense. Nothing wrong with them, but Breaking Bad is a story about a character that goes through an arc. Okay. And that is ultimately the reason. It's very, very well done. And the narrative is rock solid. And the fact that Vince Gilligan had those entire seasons and arcs planned from minute 1 to last minute is impressive. And it is a feat that I am seeing him continue on Better Call Saul, which again is why I think so many people are now gravitating towards Better Call Saul as opposed to when it first premiered, because it's kind of the same thing of what happened to Breaking Bad, where you really didn't see the conversation with Breaking Bad start until 2011, 2012 with the last couple of seasons.
And that's
because by then, but again,
I'm waiting. In all seriousness, and I've told people this, and they're like, "What do you mean? It's such a good show."
Right.
I've told people I will not watch Better Call Saul until it is over.
Same. I watched the entire first season of Better Call Saul.
I did.
It's the same thing with me, though. I am not watching Breaking Bad, because again, Breaking Bad is, and again, I'm not trying to say that, like, he's not a human being, because like I said, Walter White is one of the best.
What gets me
Walter White is one of the greatest television characters ever written.
You know what gets me through the worst seasons of Breaking Bad?
What? Well, to me, at least, also, there is no bad season of Breaking Bad. But no
season 3 of Breaking Bad.
I love season 3. I love season 3.
Rough,
season 3 is legitimately, that was the moment that got me back into the show, because for the longest time, it's such a weird relationship that I have with Breaking Bad. Well, Breaking Bad, again, the first 7 episodes I got through, and I'm like, oh shit. Because the thing about Breaking Bad is that even with the drags of certain episodes, and it would take me a long fucking time. It took me 3 years to finish Breaking Bad. I'm not kidding. From sophomore year of high school, no, longer than that. Junior year of high school to sophomore year of college is how long it took me to finish Breaking Bad. It took me a long fucking time to finish it, but every single time what would keep me coming back is those goddamn last season finale episodes. Holy fuck, where you got Tuco killing his guy, my mouth was down to the floor. Season 2 with all the bullshit with Jane, and I fucking cannot stand Kristen Ritter. She is one of the most one-dimensional, bland actresses I've ever seen. She gives the exact same performance in every single thing I've seen her in, and I'm sure she's a very nice person.
Do you not trust the bee in Apartment 23?
That show's hilarious, but not because of her. It's because they're fucking actually utilizing her one defining character arc in all of her performances, and she is the reason why I do not like Jessica Jones.
Really?
Nothing against the writing, because the writing for that show is rock solid. She is a one-dimensional actress and only gives the exact same performance in everything. I've never seen her give, and it's the one instance where, again, I'm not hating on her because she's a woman.
Hold on.
I swear to God, I'm not hating on her.
Of course you're not. But do you think it's maybe because she's been typecasted into these roles
Possibly.
of the bitch?
Possibly. That is a very strong case, and that's perfectly understandable. But
like, I would be interested to see her pulled out of that role.
You're right.
And
Here's the problem: else. She kind of was with Jessica Jones. Where Jessica, I'm sorry, I get it. Jessica Jones can have bitch-like tendencies, but not to that level. Not that like I.
And we're using real fast. We're using the word bitch in terms of like
right.
Literally, she was the bitch character on Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment
right.
23.
But again, the point,
which is literally Don't Trust the Bitch in Apartment 23.
Again, the purpose of that show is that show has a reason for using her bitchiness. It's for the purposes of comedy. And from the little bit of that show that I've seen,
nice
it works. She seems like a very nice person, but I'm sorry.
I've seen interviews with her and she's funny.
So Jessica Jones is the story of a PTSD rape survivor, right?
Yeah.
And I get it, PTSD and trauma should be portrayed in a realistic sense, right? So she definitely shouldn't be portraying like a victim, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But her constantly feeling the need to be such a bitch, that's all Kristen Ritter. And ultimately, I think Kristen Ritter's performance hurts that character, and it hurts that show, and it hurts just the overall types of stories that need to be seen. Because I'm sorry, if all I'm seeing when I watch that show is Kristen Ritter, again, acting like a bitch and not a rape and PTSD survivor, that is, if I'm seeing that, imagine what a fucking 80-year-old Hollywood executive or Netflix executive is seeing that. Because what he's seeing is a person who doesn't like that, so therefore those types of stories can't be told. That's what it is. And that's why I have to go so hard on these types of performances. Nothing against the person. They deserve to get work and everything. But those types of performances are a thing of the past. And in order to move forward and to make sure that these types of stories can be seen and known by a wide variety of people, you gotta get the right type of person. And so so that was kind of a little bit of an off tangent. But
sorry about that.
But do you understand now why kind of like that viewpoint on Breaking Bad versus Sopranos, and why again the ending of one show, and of course obviously the ending of a show should always benefit what the creators and what suits the character, and the idea that one ending works for all is heresy and should not work. And so like why do you think so many people fucking hated the Love the Friends finale, hated the How I Met Your Mother finale, whatever, because it's the sitcom mentality of trying to apply the same thing to everything, and it's not what people want.
Well, and I think hold on. I think the difference is the Friends finale had a good final moment between characters that you wanted to be together,
right?
And you had, did she get off the plane? She got off the plane,
right?
And it had,
and again, that's also just the early 2000s of like, it was just a different mindset towards television in general.
Let me get. Here's the point I'm about here.
Right. Okay.
And I got to get there.
Okay.
So it was a perfect moment of closing the door on the series, and in this apartment that they all loved, and that we've been through so many ups and downs.
Literally years, 10 years.
10 years worth of getting to know David Schwimmer as well as we could.
Yeah.
And then never caring about him again.
Never caring about him. Like, Jesus Christ.
He did 2 movies after that
David Schwimmer's best performance is as the fucking giraffe on the Madagascar
movie. Thank you. Those are the only movies I remember.
Melvin the giraffe is David Schwimmer's best performance.
So, okay.
And that is nothing against David Schwimmer, the guy. He seems like a nice guy, but
So that was a perfect way to end a sitcom. How I Met Your Mother, you're backtracking over what was seasons worth of build-up to be...
And character development.
To be like, no, Ted recognizes that they're better as friends.
Right.
I think that was the whole point of Barney and Robin's wedding.
Right, at least I thought that was too, besides just undercutting the entire reason for the season existing.
Here's the thing, is I think that the perfect ending to that show was...
the alternate finale that's on YouTube, where it's them at the fucking train station where they're talking about where they first meet, and then it just cuts to him going through everything that they went through, and then the umbrella flying away. That's the perfect finale to me.
That's a good finale. That's good. I think the perfect finale was already done in the show. I want to say it was season 5's ending. Whichever season ended with him walking through the door, and it's like, and at one of my best friend's weddings, and Barney turns around and he goes, "Which tie?" and you realized that he was getting married to Robin.
That may have been, I can't remember if that was 6 or 7, and I also don't remember if that was a finale or a premiere, but...
No, that was a season finale.
It may have been 6, because 7 is the one where Marshall and Barney are trying to get back from Atlantic City in time for Lily giving birth to Marvin.
Right, and 7 ends with Robin being revealed as the one he's getting married to or whatever.
Right. And it also ends with Ted driving away with Victoria because Victoria's already run away from her own wedding.
I'm sorry, that ending was
that was really when it like kind of that should have been the first sign that How I Met Your Mother was in trouble.
That whole season was very rough.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Everything after 6, you had a perfect finale. Barney's wedding, that's how he met the mother. That's all we needed.
Right.
We didn't even need to meet the mother. I think the whole point of the show wasn't that we needed to meet the mother, was that he ended up being happy.
Right.
And I think in that moment...
But we can both agree that even as much... Because here's the thing, I did like what I saw from the characters in 7, 8, and 9. We can all agree How I Met Your Mother is one of those shows that went on way too long.
Oh, very much
way too long.
Well, and the writers of that show agree with me where they say it should have ended at 6 with that reveal.
Because you know what happened was, it was what they tried to do with... It was in the mid-2000s, which again, it took them years to figure this out, but it was the trying to apply the actual sense of narrative and story to the sitcom form, to the sitcom / basically network TV formula, and I'm sorry, that does not work.
No,
it just does not work.
Yeah.
It didn't work with Lost. It did not work with How I Met Your Mother. Like, you could start off and you can have some really interesting stories, but overall, the network TV formula, whether it be a drama or a sitcom...
What do you mean it was all a dream?
Setting, types of characters, and their interactions. And that's it. That's what you have. That's the only way that the network TV formula works.
They've been dead the whole time.
Yeah, it's... Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I think that's what they were going for. They were going for the average audience going, they've been dead the whole time. Hands to face. What?
Those types...
Oh my god. And it doesn't work because the audience... They undercut audiences all the time and go, our audiences are stupid enough to think that this is cool.
Right. And TV's always done that much more so than movies.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I'm getting at, is like TV is very much known for our audiences are stupid. Right. Let's just give them... And
this is what I think I love, is where I become worried about movie audiences in the way that they're looking at like a Netflix versus theaters, where again it seems like the direction that they're going is the only movies now that are going to go to theaters, because again they're the only movies that make money are the event films, where every movie that you go to see in theater has to be an event and everything else just goes to streaming.
Yeah.
With TV, it's very much the opposite, where now Netflix and the streaming services are forcing... and the reason why they've made so much network television and storytelling obsolete, and this makes me happy because, like I said, I've said this for the longest time, I can't stand most network TV now. Yeah. Looking back, like, of all the network TV shows that I've watched, I maybe like one thing that I watched. Like, I watched the first 3 seasons of Lost, I cut it off, I watched all of How I Met Your Mother, and all the sitcoms that I watched. You know, the NBC, Michael Schur, and, Dan Gorman and Michael, oh my god, what are those fucking guys' names? The guys who did The Office and Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, those guys are the only ones that I've seen.
Are you sure it's not Michael Schur?
Michael Schur and Dan Gorman, I think, are the 2 guys.
Yeah, it's Michael Schur.
And where those things are the only ones.
Oh my god, a person that I remember that you know. Holy shit!
And obviously, and like I said, the Seinfeld, like I said, the back in the days when the network TV was the only thing that it was. But mostly everything that I've seen, like I said, the first 3 seasons of Lost, I cut it off after season 3. How I Met Your Mother. I watched it because I love the characters and I love them bouncing off of interactions, and because by that point the chemistry between the cast was so rock solid that they didn't even need to really rely on good writing anymore.
No, exactly.
But yeah, like I don't watch any network TV now because what the streaming services have forced them to do is they're forcing television.
Well, we cut the cord, so I
haven't watched. Besides that, I'm talking about what the network TV has forced what streaming has forced the network TV to do is to actually focus on story first. And where the reason why I say TV and movies have switched place is because, again, it's almost
I'm going to throw a wrench in your...
Hold on, let me finish before you just throw the wrench in. Is where, again, I've been saying this since 2016, it's because the audiences and the expectation have changed, where now people watch TV expecting to see really interesting, new, different, engaging stories, because that's what they've been built up to, and that's why TV is putting more of an emphasis on actual writing and finding good stories as opposed to just finding a group of people that people like seeing bounce off of each other, right, and not going much off to rely on. Versus movies now, they're all about finding the next franchise with the already inset audience, so that way they don't have to worry about putting as much thought into actual writing and character, because that way if they have the inset audience, they can just focus on getting them the next schlock and making money. That's why Marvel's been as successful as they are.
Are you ready for me to throw a small wrench?
Throw a wrench in my argument,
I would even say an exception.
Okay.
Not even a wrench, but an exception.
Right.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Okay.
Characters bouncing off of each other. I don't give a fuck what adventure they're going on in the episode. I just care about the character.
And that's perfectly understandable, and I will give you Brooklyn Nine-Nine seems to be the only one that is still following that. Here's the one problem I've heard. I haven't seen a single episode ever since they switched to NBC. I heard the season that's been on NBC has not been good.
I haven't watched it yet.
And I don't know. I'll be able to judge it more so when I start watching it, because I haven't watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine in a while. But
I think the thing that I'm saying is...
But it's like you said, it's like you just said, that's more so an exception, not the rule.
And I think with even Brooklyn Nine-Nine switching to a new channel and a new,
forum and everything.
Forum and all that. I think the biggest thing is those characters. Do we still have Andy Samberg being a fucking idiot with Terry Crews and Joe
Lo
Truglio, thank you so much. Do I still get that? Then I'm fucking happy.
Right.
Do I still get girl who plays Amy Santiago?
Melissa Fumero fucking being weird and quirky and
just like out there, but being the character that reins everything in, but still having her own fucking weird quirks. Perfect.
Right. Except here's the thing about that is that Brooklyn Nine-Nine, at least from what I've been seeing recently, is where it's a little bit of the same problem that I had with The Office. I think The Office and Parks and Rec handled this both better, and I can say that because it's the same creators of all the shows. Is that Brooklyn Nine-Nine seems to be suffering from this the worst, though, where Parks and Rec, I think, did it the best. The Office did it the second best, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine is the worst from what I've seen so far, where what happens with these types of comedies, with these writers specifically, and I'm talking specifically about these writers, like I said, the same guys that do all the shows, is that whenever they try to actually develop the characters, the comedy suffers as a result. And I feel like what I'm watching is not funny. Parks and Rec, I think, did it the best, where the comedy never faltered, but they were still able to develop the characters. But
because the comedy was never there.
Because you don't find Parks.
Here's the thing. I do. I actually do, and I've watched through Parks and Rec probably 7 or 8 times.
Okay.
Love Parks and Rec.
Is it because the comedy isn't forced and because they're not making jokes and it's mostly improvised, so it feels very centric to the characters?
Hold on. Because with Parks and Rec, I feel like it's a different kind of comedy. I understand that The Office is always going to be the granddaddy of, awkward workplace comedy,
right,
and drawing your laughter out of how uncomfortable it can make you feel.
And like I said, my personal, and I've already gone into this, like, my personal preference between Parks and Rec over The Office just comes from, like, it has nothing to do with the actual quality of the show. Mine just comes from the overall appeal and approach of the show, where The Office throws off such a cynical vibe versus Parks and Rec is the total opposite. Well,
because you got to look at the times that they were made at.
Right, true.
You've got
late 2000s, mid to late 2000s versus 2010s.
Exactly. Well, not even just... Well, so 2005,
2005 to 2009 were like The Office's prime run, and then like the later seasons, which again, with the exception of 6 and 7, like nobody likes 8 and 9. But again, I don't blame that on the writing of the show.
No, it's Steve
Carell leaving, and also just the fact that by that point people had already checked out of the show. But
and I think it's also, and I know that they had been together for a very long time in the show. But it's Krasinski and
Jenna Fisher.
What was that sound?
Well, I have no idea.
Krasinski and Fisher were married by that point,
right?
And they had kids, and there wasn't much farther you could go.
The
only place you could go with that is the marriage problems arc, and no one wants to watch your Romeo and Juliet go through problems,
right?
Right.
No one
wants to watch your love story fall apart.
It was breaking through the escapism a little bit too much for people.
Exactly.
Now it was feeling like
you were actually seeing ever after.
And this I've actually gone into it, right? I've actually gone into it this end because remember, I don't know if you were remembering last year, but they were publishing all these think pieces on the articles like, oh, why The Office really sucks, why The Office wouldn't work if it was down the air.
Oh my god!
Because I'll tell you why I think, and like I said, I don't know because I've only seen the show up to 6 and a little bit of 7. I have not seen an episode of 8 or 9. What I think happened was they were trying to evolve the show past Steve Carell when Steve Carell left. But by that point, besides people were starting to check out, it was breaking through the escapism a little bit too much. People watch those shows for the escapism value of it. And for whatever reason, Steve Carell and those guys were able to break through it, right? Where you still had Jim and Pam with The Office romance, right?
Yeah.
I think that the real reason why The Office would not work today is because most audiences today are looking to compare the stuff to their real life, even more so than they did back then. Where back then, you were watching it at a distance. You were laughing and being entertained by the fact that you got, for that brief second, you got to watch someone else's life be shitty and not worry about your own problems. While at the same time, understanding how it could be the same problems. That's not the case now. Where now, what's happening is you're looking at all of this content on TV and you're being like, holy fuck, that hits a little bit too hard, too home for me. Where now you have all those people that grew up with The Office.
Well, and not just, hold on.
Are now entering jobs like that and going back and dealing with the people in The Office and understanding just how harsh and realistic and how close to home that show hit and realize, holy fuck, this show is scarily accurate. And I think for a decent amount of people, again, I don't think it's affected a lot of people's enjoyment of the show as much as clickbait articles want to point out.
Hold on.
But
so, yes, I agree with everything you're saying about escapism and how...
because TV is supposed to be escapism first. And film, it's supposed to be escapism first.
And to help defend your point, because you said you haven't seen 8 and 9.
Right, I have not seen a single episode of 8 and 9.
That's very interesting to me. So, because 8 and 9 is where...
And I want to. It's not like a Lost 4 through 6 where I know it's only going to go downhill. I want to see it because I want to have my own take on it.
And not just that, but Season 8 and Season 9 for what they were and all the problems that they had.
Right.
The conclusion to the show is perfect.
I've heard, and that's what I've heard. The finale is one of the. I've heard multiple people.
The finale is one of the greatest episodes
say
of all
that
time.
The finale is one of the best Office episodes, and one of the. I've heard people say that it is one of the best TV show finales of all time.
It really is. And I don't know how personal you get with shows.
It depends on the show.
I'm an emotional guy.
Right, me too. But like I said, it depends on the show.
Well, so what I would say to you is, if you're gonna watch them, you've got to binge the whole series.
Okay.
And you can't stop once Carell leaves. You have to get past that.
Right, and I don't plan on. What I do is with my Office viewing, where I'll take breaks, and then I'll usually come back to it, and I'm usually able to still.
And
be
that's
satisfied.
the thing is, so if I were to recommend something to you, 1 through 3, because that's your perfect. Jim and Pam not together.
Right.
4 through about 6 or 7. No, 4 through 6, because that's your.
6 is their wedding.
6 is their wedding, and then you do 7 through 9 because that's Steve leaving, them having 2 kids, and then 9 is. I don't want to say
it exists.
anything,
Right, it exists in. Is that the one where like you had Pam considering that she was like leaving Jim and like considering
him? And so
real quick, and you can give
fast,
spoilers for me. I don't care. Did anything actually happen there or no? It was just a thought that she was having.
They got pretty close.
Oh, wait, her and who though? Or was it him that was almost cheating on somebody else?
So it was her, and the thing going back to the escapism, because this is where I'm getting at. The thing with escapism in that show, they start interacting more with the camera crew.
Oh.
They bring out, and so you're introduced to this character named Brian, who is the boom mic operator for the documentary.
Okay.
And they've been friends for the last 9 fucking years or whatever.
Right.
However long, I can't remember exactly how long the show goes over.
2005 to 2013.
No,
so
I know.
You do the math.
No, it's 8 years, but I can't remember how long in the show you're actually supposed to be seeing.
I don't remember. The point
I think they say 9 years.
Because what happened is, so here's the thing. So technically, where I left off on my Netflix, because Netflix was really.
So for one example, real quick, the last episode of season 9 takes place a year after
the conclusion of them making and releasing the documentary, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I know about that.
Yeah. So Brian has been friends with Jim and Pam throughout the whole thing.
The entire thing.
Yeah. And there's this like weird little connection that they're having where it's like when Pam and Jim are going through problems, Brian's like stepping in.
Right.
And he's
leading you to the thing of where,
you think like
where you've
they
seen that
could
narrative
cheat
set
on
up
each
before.
other.
Problems. Oh, here's the comforting friend.
I will say, and I'm sure this is a spoiler, but I'll say it
It's
anyways.
fine.
They don't. She realizes like, oh my god, he actually is like.
See, that's the thing.
Interested in me,
right.
so she leaves.
Right. See, that's the thing to me. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
That's the. I can understand why people would complain about it, but to me at least, to someone like me, that's interesting.
Well,
because that's something new, and that is a logical follow-up to their arc of where you have all. You're right.
Yeah.
For the 1 through 3, you have the playful flirtation where, ironically enough, you had almost Jim in that position in 1 through 3 with her and Roy. Then her realizing she doesn't like Roy, and then she's dating Jim, and then they get married, and then they find out that they're pregnant, and and the peaceful bliss. And then, like I said, what's the first thing that always happens? Is always usually the falling apart and rekindling their love.
And to be fair,
me, at least for the purposes of a narrative and a natural progression of like human beings, at least for the purposes of escapist art like that makes sense to me.
Well, and hold on. So, and to be fair, there is a point in 7 where you think like Jim might cheat on her
because they bring back
no. So Pam is about to have their second child, so she goes on. Well, she does, and she goes on maternity leave, and they bring in her replacement, who's like this hotter younger woman. And she's like trying to get Jim to admit that he's attracted to her.
Oh, okay.
Well, in a funny way, because he keeps going, I don't find her attractive.
Right.
And like,
she doesn't like maybe have feelings for him. He just wants her to admit that she's attractive.
Yeah. He just wants her. Pam just wants Jim to admit that she's attractive. Because she's upset that he's lying to her. About it. And she's like, just admit it. It's fine. And it gets to one of my favorite moments in The Office where Dwight is like helping Pam because they're like best friends at this point. Right. You know, they're secret best friends. Right. And he's like
another natural progression where it's like, I'm sorry, you can't have them pranking him for the entirety of the show. That only works for a little bit.
Exactly.
I'm actually glad that in season 3 they did the smart thing and backed off the pranks because
and they keep going. I mean, they're still doing pranks to each other throughout
but it feels
the whole show.
Natural. That's the thing. It doesn't feel like it's a joke that they have to keep dragging up.
Well, so think about it. There's the point. I don't know if you ever got to this episode where Dwight is doing a standing desk at his job, and he's like, and Jim is just like, you gonna just do a standing desk now? And he's like, and Dwight's like, I am a superior. He's doing his whole like I'm a superior human being and blah blah blah. And Jim's like, okay, so then I challenge you to not sit for the rest of the day. And Dwight's like, he ends up essentially putting a kickstand up his pant leg and like so he's sitting on a bike seat up on a kickstand. So he's like it looks like he's standing up. And Jim just like knocks shit off his desk and is like, why don't you bend over and pick that up? And Dwight is like, and Jim's like, you know what I have to do now, right? And Dwight's like, I understand. And Jim just pushes him off. And it's cool. And
that's actually really great. That's actually really great.
And the thing is to the point, what it does is it shows that they're like, yeah, we get it now. Like, like, it's more of a friend thing almost.
Right.
Like, to the point where when Jim decides that he wants to leave the office and go for his dream in the last season, Dwight he's like, I don't want to spoil it too much. Dwight essentially becomes manager.
Right.
At one point.
For like a hot minute, and then like
you'll see.
Okay.
But
like I said, because I do want to bring this back to Game of Thrones for these last couple minutes.
Oh, we absolutely
we actually, because I love how we said we were going to do Game of Thrones and we ended up going on an Office tangent.
Yeah.
So I love this. I love this.
So he's like with Dwight, he's like, I'm quitting. We're gonna move. We're leaving Scranton. We're going to Austin. I'm working on a new business. And Dwight's like, you can't leave. I fire you. But they're like cool now at this point.
Right.
And Jim is like, come on, Dwight. We're friends. We like, it's just a back and forth. And he's like, no, you're not. You can't quit. I'm firing you, and I won't hear anything else about it. Because, so I think what we can do for your severance package is your whole salary plus half. And he's basically firing him so he can give him like a ton of money to go and start their new lives.
Right.
Both of them, because
Right.
at this point they're both like salespeople. Or no, Pam's the office manager
Right.
at this point.
Right.
And he's just like, I'm trying to fire you so I can give you all this like money and shit so you can go make your dreams.
Right.
Like,
But they're doing it still in like the typical office way where they're like pretending to be enemies still. But...
yeah. Well, Dwight's got this smile on his face when he goes, so we're gonna talk about your severance package now, and it's like it's a nice moment.
That's actually really nice.
And it's watching this character arc. That's the other thing is, people don't do characters anymore, man, and don't do arcs perfectly.
No, they don't.
You like the thing that you have to do when you start out writing a TV show, and I'll admit I haven't professionally written a TV show
Right.
yet, so I can't pretend like I know.
I've
exactly
always wanted
how
to work on like a good TV show, but you're right, and that also just has something to say about the audience now that we live in too.
Yeah.
Where now I don't think another reason, I think the biggest reason over everything else as to why the office wouldn't work today is attention spans. Because the problem is that again with network TV audience and the biggest reason why network TV is meant for longevity, and audiences simply do not have the time and they do not have the attention span to invest in a show like that for years on end. And that also has to do with just that there's too much content out there, so there's going to be 1.5 million things in between, and they're going to eventually forget about it.
Well, and so what I'm saying though is, with character arcs, when you sit down to start writing something, especially if you're doing a long TV show,
right,
you need to have
at least have an idea.
Not even hold on. I think you want. We've been talking about the best characters in television, essentially this episode.
Yes.
Your character arc needs to be planned to almost a T from beginning to end.
See, that's the
before
thing,
you even hop in. And yes, you let the story then affect the middle part of the arc, but you need to know where you want this character to start and where you want them to end.
You were talking about monkey wrenches before. I'm going to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into your argument as to why I don't think that should always be the case.
Okay.
The ending of How I Met Your Mother that we got, where Ted ends up coming back around to Robin, that was the original planned ending of the show.
That's why it's bad.
That's why. That's why But here's the thing: does that wreck the entire show though? As a result.
Yes, because that's why and so as someone who was a fan of How I Met Your Mother.
But what if
hold
throughout
on,
the show?
hold
Okay.
on.
Yes.
As someone who was a fan of that show from its conception all the way to the last fucking frame.
Because those first couple seasons legitimately are great. It's some of my favorite television
Amazing. The pineapple story still fucking
awesome.
Just
little bit over-explained in later seasons, but
anywho, as a fan of that show all the way through, it was almost a spit in the face to have your character go, you know everything that we just talked about in these last 3 seasons? Fuck it, I love Robin again. Let's go. And to bring David Henry back just to shoot some fucking couch shot where it's like, no, we get it.
Yeah, where it's very clear that like he is not a teenager anymore.
Yeah,
he's like almost 30 by that point.
Yeah, and his voice was so deep.
Oh my god, yeah.
And just like, I understand what they were trying to do this cute thing and bring back in the fucking blue French horn.
The blue French horn and the dogs and everything.
I get it. But to do that is just literally a spit in the face of everyone who's been.
And you blame that on bad writing because that was their original goal and intention from the entire get-go.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yes. Well, no. Again, if I'm not mistaken, I read an interview with the writers who said we really didn't want to write those extra seasons. The past finding out that he met the wife at Barney's wedding.
Right.
Like, you know, we didn't want to write past that, but then the station kept ordering more fucking episodes.
Right.
And we had to.
Which, again, speaks to the problem with the networks in general.
It's that Bo Burnham quote, man. Yeah. We'll stop beating this dead horse when it stops spitting out money.
Pretty much. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Which, again, bringing it back to Game of Thrones is
why... do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, let's do that. But so, overall, I think the point being is thank you streaming that we were going for is thank you streaming services for saving television.
Yeah, essentially.
Networks almost killed them because even though there were a few gems that snuck in there, network television is overall, just for today's audiences, it is a medium that no longer works and became outdated a while ago, and it took them a long fucking time to realize the types of shows that work.
Also, thank God that streaming services just exist so I can watch Cheers without
that
having
too.
to wait
Obviously,
for fucking
I'm letting
TV
you
Land to come around.
letting you watch around. So the whole thing. So to wrap up this episode. So obviously this is not going to be the last episode. I'm hoping that this is not the last episode that we'll do talking about Game of Thrones.
Oh no,
but,
not at all.
The whole thing is that
now that we're back and now that we're in the swing of things,
so
I think we'll do more.
Texted you the other day
On Thursday, is we're recording this on Saturday, and I've had 3 days to think about it, and I have not.
Awesome. Is that I texted you about fucking the Game of Thrones penultimate episode, right? Because again, this is another thing that Game of Thrones kind of borrowed from the Sopranos, where what the Sopranos would do is it would have its big climactic. I think the only season. No. Even season 1 did this. Even season 1 did this to an extent. It was a little bit tricky, but where you would usually have the big climactic moment happen in your penultimate episode.
Yes.
And then your final episode is
the reactions
the reactions to it, the falling out, how that changes the world, and and how that ultimately keeps
Sets
the narrative
up.
going.
Yeah.
And again, it's a thing that the Sopranos did so brilliantly, and it's why all of their stories for all of their seasons never felt rushed. And also the tricky thing, the brilliant thing that those types of narratives do is it makes you realize what the focus of the season is versus what the overall narrative is. Because usually I see is the penultimate episode is the resolution. And like I said, it depends on every single one. But the penultimate season is usually the resolution of the story of the season versus the final episode will usually contribute to the overall narrative. So if we're breaking that down to specifics.
Well, so real quick.
Yes.
Let me just say, I completely agree with that. And I think that basically the thought that I had when you said that was, it's kind of equated to if you still have regular television think,
right?
Like network television think from the 80s all the way to the
honestly, even to now with Walking Dead, where only now Walking Dead is supposedly, from what I've heard, finally starting to like take narrative risks instead of following the same formula.
But if you have that,
but again, Walking Dead's problem is again, it's like what 7-8 years too late.
If you have that network TV think of like, this needs to be the final episode of the season, like. All of these episodes would be perfect season finales in network television.
Every single one of these episodes that we are about to talk about. But like, just to give you an example, like for The Sopranos, so season 1, right? Episode 12, Isabella, Tony's having a hallucination about the foreign exchange student, and Uncle Junior's assassination attempt on him goes through, fails, and then the finale is the fallout from that, while also wrapping up everything from the season. Artie's restaurant, the thing with his mom, fucking him dealing with Junior's crew, him taking over as official boss of the family. You know, all the narratives that have been going throughout the entire season. Season 2, episode 12.
Hold on.
Yep.
Hold off. Don't.
Yes.
Don't go any farther.
Okay.
Because it has been so many years since I have watched The Sopranos, I don't remember a lot of this stuff.
Got it. So
I'm doing a rewatch this summer with my family.
Let me know when you do it, because I'm over the summer, because obviously we won't be here, so I want to be like keeping in touch with you so that we can potentially like meeting.
Dom, even if I move down to fucking Connecticut, I will.
I don't know. Of all the places you choose to be far away, Connecticut. You realize I'm closer to Connecticut than I am here.
Are you
right?
really?
I am.
There's a chance I'm going to live in Stamford.
It takes me a half an hour to get to...
there's a chance I'll end up living in Stamford.
It takes me a half an hour to get to Danbury, and it takes me roughly 2 hours to get to UConn.
I'm not trying to say this in too many places, but there's a chance I'm going to be working for the WWE out of Stamford.
Hell yeah!
So I just need to send him. I just need to send him my stuff, but I have connections there, so...
That's awesome. I'm happy
very excited,
for you. So, we're going into Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones, like I said, obviously is... Follow that formula a lot. Pretty much episode 9 is usually a very big event.
Yeah.
And then episode 10 is the fallout.
I pretty much agree with this, except I have a problem with the cover.
Okay. Well, first off, let me just read my list.
You do your thing.
First off, let's go over...
I'm going to take a walk for a second.
Okay, you go for a walk.
You go ahead. You go ahead.
So Charlie is stepping out of the room for a little bit.
Oh, no, I'm still here.
Okay, never mind. Okay, so the entire idea is
my legs are on fire.
The way that I have ranked is... I have all 7 penultimate episodes, this being the 9th episode of seasons 1 through 6, because obviously those are 10 episodes each, and then the 6th episode of season 7, because that only had 7 episodes. So my ranking, this is my official ranking for every penultimate season of Game of Thrones. My number 7, dead last, is the penultimate episode for season 5, The Dance of Dragons. My number 6 is Beyond the Wall, the penultimate episode for season 7. My number 5, and this is, again, probably going to shock a lot of people, is The Reigns of Castamere. Obviously the famous Red Wedding in season 3. Episode number 4 is Baelor, the penultimate episode of season 1. Obviously, the infamous episode where poor Ned gets his head cut off. Number 3 is Blackwater.
Don't kill Sean Bean.
Yeah, right. Sean Bean dying in something. What?
It never happened.
My number 3 is Blackwater, the penultimate episode of season 2. Obviously, Battle of Blackwater. My number 2, and this is going to shock people more, is Battle of the Bastards, penultimate for season 6. And my number 1, my absolute favorite penultimate episode, is The Watchers on the Wall, penultimate episode of season 4. Obviously, the entire episode is the Battle of the Wall between the Night's Watch and the Wildlings.
All right, now here's where I come in and disagree with you,
Yes,
motherfucker.
please, because this is the point, and why is that these things are only interesting because of conflict. That is what generates interesting narratives. Learn, Hollywood. Learn.
All right, so number 7. I need you. Here's the thing: is I'll probably agree with you, but I need you to remind me of what happens in Dance of Dragons.
All right, and again, this actually speaks to I think a larger problem of season 5 and why I think
Is this the one where Arya goes blind?
No, that's the finale.
Okay.
But, what's it called? So, again, this speaks to the real reason as to why I think most people hate Season 5. Because obviously, like I said, we've talked all the live long day about it.
Yeah.
I think the real reason why, because I would like to think that for the most part, Game of Thrones is pretty memorable, right? To the most part, I'm convinced that the reason why people hate Season 5 overall is because they can't fucking remember most of what happens in it. And I don't blame them. Looking back narratively, it's the most boring season. There's only 2 things of interest to me that are happening in all of Season 5. Tyrion's journey, 3, I should say, 3.
Go.
Tyrion's journey towards Daenerys, Jon's quest to unify the Night's Watch and the Wildlings, Cersei's struggles in King's Landing. Those are the only interesting parts to me about Season 5.
Oh, shit, was
Everything
this the
else-
one with the walk?
No, that's, again, the finale.
Okay,
Mercy.
here's my biggest problem. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, I jumped up. And if it
that's
sounds
fine. You're
weird,
allowed to.
I jumped up.
You're allowed to.
Okay, so my biggest thing, I've also had to pee for the last 30 minutes.
That explains it.
Anywho, so my biggest problem with the Dance of Dragons and Season 5 in general is everything that appeared in that season finale should have been the penultimate episode, and we should have done more shit after that.
Yes.
Except we couldn't because that's where the fucking book ended.
Right.
So, we have nothing to do after the events of Jon Snow's death and after Arya going blind and all that shit.
Right.
So,
Which, again, you're listing off all shit that happened in the finale, which is hilarious about it.
and that's the thing though, is those were all events that should have been the penultimate
Right.
episode,
Like-
except we don't know what happened.
And here's the thing, I'm sorry, but Hardhome should have been episode 8.
Yeah.
Hardhome should have been episode 8.
Very
I'm sorry,
much so.
because first off, as much as I love the Dragon Pit sequence that happens at the end of it, it's a very well done sequence. Narratively, that should be the finale.
Very much so,
Narratively, that
yeah.
entire thing should be the finale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yep. And Jon Snow, because I'm sorry, but Jon Snow, who again they've enlisted as one of the most important parts of season 5, because ever since season 4, with Robb dying at the Red Wedding in season 3 and season 4 onward, they enlist Jon as the most important start.
Yeah.
You don't realize it at the time, but up to that point, if you look at it again, Jon really doesn't have that much to do. Like, he's learning to become a man, right? And obviously he's maturing more. But season 4 onward, that is when the show really starts to become Jon's show.
So I'm gonna say yes. Number 7, Dance of Dragons.
Worst penultimate episode.
Don't remember a fucking
outside
thing
of the
that happened
dragon
in it.
sequence. Don't remember a goddamn thing that happened.
What was the dragon sequence?
The dragon pit sequence, where it's the entire.
Oh, that's that
That's that episode. The Sons of the Harpy attacking the dragon pit. Jorah protecting Daenerys, and Drogon showing up, literally Dragon Ex Machina. To me, that is
Trash.
a much worse Dragon Ex Machina than Beyond the Wall. Because at the very least, when that happened in Beyond the Wall, it was cool. Because you finally got to see fucking dragons fighting White Walkers. But,
Yeah, no, trash.
yeah, trash. Easily
Okay.
the worst.
Beyond the Wall, I will keep that there.
Yeah, because here's the thing. As much as I love that show, that season, I will admit it's for mostly personal reasons, and structurally and narratively, the episode does not make sense. It's a stupid idea. It's, again, another example of Benioff and Weiss just needing characters to get from point A to point B and filling in the gap between them. I love the camaraderie between the characters. I love them all reminiscing. I like what Tyrion is
I
saying.
like the team up. Hold on, but I do like the fucking
team up. Like I said,
up.
the team up of getting that group of characters to go north is awesome. And
Also,
the way it concludes, like
best part
Beric
about
Dondarrion and the Hound, Thoros reminiscing with Thoros reminiscing with Jorah, the Hound and Tormund there back and forth over
Do you know
Brienne.
how happy I was that they actually did bring Gendry back?
Gendry,
into
oh
the
yeah,
show?
I knew they were gonna bring him back at some
I did
point.
too, I did
but
too.
because it was one of those things that they have been hinting at for too long. But
My favorite joke-
I was happy how they brought him
My
back.
favorite joke from any press tour or any general thing was name.
Joe Dempsey.
Joe Dempsey was doing an interview, and they were like, "So, where do you think Gendry's been?"
Gendry is. He's
Gendry.
like, still
Sorry,
rowing.
I always say Gendry.
Yeah, I know.
Where do
Still
you
rowing.
think?
Still rowing.
Well, I guess his arms must be really
Yeah,
buff from
seriously.
all this rowing
And
that
hey,
he's doing.
they fucking were. He is. I don't know, man.
Dude, I don't know what he
jacked
fucking
as
did.
fuck. I mean, he was a big guy before. I mean, obviously, like.
Well,
he
no.
was more average
Fake
size than
skins.
beforehand.
Fake skins.
What do you mean?
He was on skins.
No. I'm talking in the first 3 seasons of Thrones. Before
Well, what
that.
I'm saying is before he was on Thrones, he was on
He
skins.
was on skins, I
And
know
he was
that.
a skinny bitch.
He was skinny, and he was my favorite part about those first 2 seasons.
absolutely.
The best. And
Oh my God.
The conclusion to his character arc was so tragic. But
Oh, yeah.
goddamn, he fucking like. I mean, again, it was
Yeah.
a joke, but he fucking buffed up. Like the
Oh, yeah.
the Gendry that you see when he reappears in season 7 when
And
Davos goes to get him.
And I will give you that in the trailer, seeing him walk amongst the
That's
men.
dope.
That was dope.
And it's because I'll tell you why. It's not just a thing of where you're happy to see him back. It's a thing of where, he feels like he should be here.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Because here's the thing, and this is a theory that I've been hearing for a long time now, and if they don't kill off everyone, I truly do believe that if Gendry makes it through this, he's going to bring back House Baratheon.
Are you ready for
I truly do believe that.
I do too. Are you ready for Gendry to reunite with Arya?
Yes, very much so. I have been waiting for that reunification for years, and what makes me happy about it is one I thought I was never going to get.
Exactly.
It's one I thought I was never going to get. And I'll tell you why. And this brings it back to season 7 overall. If I can just go on a rant about why I love season 7 so
Yeah,
much,
go
it's
for it.
because so I understand your standing. I'm going to like simulate standing.
No, go
is
for
that
it.
so for
Just don't break the chair, please.
Okay, I'm gonna
Cool.
stand now too.
Yeah,
so,
go for it, man.
Fuck it, standing podcast. So is the reason why I love season 7 so much is because besides the fact that yes, I understand people saying, it's when the TV writers came in. It's when they started to like go against most of the mold, stopping like breaking character expectations by suddenly killing off characters out of nowhere and then realizing that the steps were there the whole time, right?
Right.
It's not just that. I wish it was just that where it's like, they're just being nice to the characters now. It's more than that. It's the fact that look, if it was just the characters getting together, right, in like Avengers style in order to deal with whatever big threat it was, that would be one thing and I would recognize it for force. It's the fact that narratively the writers understand that this threat of the White Walkers is the biggest threat that these people have ever faced. And they're handling it in realistic ways, and so it makes sense. Regardless of all the logic gaps of the time jumps and everything, it makes sense that all of these characters would finally be coming together and finally realizing that the political intrigue and frankly nonsense and bullshit has all been nothing. Yep. And you know why? And again, because it goes against George's more cynical viewpoint. It's the one thing that I think Benioff and Weiss do better than George. It's them understanding.
You're not big on cynical viewpoints, are you?
No, and
okay.
but we can cover that at a later date.
Yeah, totally. We'll have a whole.
We'll
have a whole Office versus Parks and Rec.
It's because I'm a cynical person by nature, and so I don't want I don't want that type of cynicism to be presented as much in my media. So the whole thing is that it's them recognizing that yes, human beings are shitty, and human beings always let their personal bullshit interfere with more important things. Right? Always, 1000%. That's the way of the beast. It's the nature of the beast. That has always happened since time immemorial. With Game of Thrones, it is them putting aside all of their personal bullshit. Well, it also still being there too. Like I said, the journey to getting them all together was not easy. That's the thing. They still dealt with it realistically and had the characters' egos bashing up against one another. Mm-hmm. But it was them coming together in order to... And the understanding that all of them now have that this could quite possibly be their last fight ever. And it was them handling the fact of like, okay, look, for whatever reasons, for everything that these characters have done over the last 8 years, I have grown to love each and every watching. Yeah. Say what you will about them personally, watching each and every single one of these characters over the last
just how they interact
journey,
with the world.
just how they interact with each other, with the world, everything, and seeing these guys and girls one last time, all together, finally overcoming struggles from the past, not making the same mistakes as before, fucking taking the narrative in a direction that feels natural, but also still feels like Game of Thrones. Like, you can feel the show shifting direction, like it has so many times before, so that's why it doesn't feel so jarring, right? When they're all of a sudden doing all of this stuff, when you have Jon Snow telling the North, the White Walkers are coming, you need to fucking be prepared. You don't feel like he's saying that just for the sake of saying that because the plot tells him to. You feel like that because he's seen them up close. He's seen them and
knows
fought
what they
the
can
Night
do.
King up close and personal. He knows what they can do, and he knows that this threat trounces every single other threat. That's why when everyone is telling them not to go south, but he still knows he has to do it, you understand why. Even though logically, from a logical standpoint, again, you're on the side of all the Northerners because every single time the Northerners have gone south, bad things have happened. That also makes sense, right? You understand Sansa's viewpoint. You understand the Northern Lord's viewpoint and everything. But with Jon and what he's doing there, again, it's the fact that the characters are still making decisions that make sense. That makes sense. We'll get this done. So,
okay.
So if we're
number
continuing
5,
the penultimate episode,
I disagree completely.
On the Reigns of Castamere. So
Are you ready for this? Watchers on the Wall, number 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, so that's interesting because
here's the thing.
Because here's the thing. I will fully admit that show selection comes down to personal preference.
When I watched Watchers on the Wall for the first time, all I thought was, this is just cool.
Okay.
This is so cool.
All right.
I understand the ideas that they're getting across, how much character development they do without even leaving the fucking wall.
Yes.
Very, very beautiful.
Okay.
The Ygritte Jon Snow dynamic.
Oh, and how that's resolved. It's just here's the thing. I was heartbroken when that happened. And here's the thing too, is that I didn't like Jon as a character when he was with Ygritte because at first I thought it was because he was just being an idiot and romance-wise and just my previous stance on romance and media in general, but also just the fact that Ygritte was just so 1,000 times more interesting of a character than Jon was, and like Rose Leslie injected so much goddamn personality with all
and
the
I'm so
little
happy that
quirks,
they're together.
constantly making it like that is one of the best TV couples I've ever seen, and it was heartbreaking when I read it in the show, but actually seeing it, and it's one of the things too where that was my Red Wedding to me, where that was the thing where here's the fun fact: I didn't watch Red Wedding when it aired, as it did. I watched it after the fact.
Okay.
Watchers on the Wall, I watched in the moment. So for me at least, Watchers on the Wall was my Reigns of Castamere, because I feel like I never fully invested in Robb and Kat as much as I should have, because I read the books and I didn't watch it in the moment, and so being in the moment, that was just, I never had that feeling for me, which is why I feel that the Reigns of Castamere doesn't do for me what Watchers on the Wall does.
See,
it
it's
happened
opposite.
in the moment. But like I said, it's just a matter of personal preference. For me, at least, so the way that everybody felt, knowing that the Red Wedding was going to happen, and knowing what was going to happen with Robb, with Kat, and everything, and then still being wrecked by it, and then of course, obviously, everybody that didn't know about it being shocked and awed by it.
So
for me, that was my Watchers on the Wall. Was that for me, where seeing Ygritte standing there with the arrow pointed at Jon and knowing exactly what was going to happen, it still crushed me when it happened.
Yeah,
crushed me so goddamn hard.
So next up, after Watchers on the Wall, I'm gonna have to put Blackwater.
Yes, and I agree, because here's the thing for me, I love Blackwater, but I will fully admit, Blackwater to me is Batman 89, where, looking back, I love that, I love the sequence, and I love how that it's filmed and executed, it's executed brilliantly.
Yeah.
And just as a battle, though, Watchers on the Wall, Battle of the Bastards, Spoils of War, even fucking Beyond the Wall, obviously trumpet for me, because fucking, again, just the budget that they had and what they did.
Exactly.
And looking back, like I said, because they were able to top it so easily, and because narratively, I felt like there wasn't enough interesting stuff that was going on during it, I feel like it doesn't do enough for me. So that's why I only have Blackwater
at 3.
At 3, as opposed to Reigns of Castamere.
But so
and
the thing is,
and then I have Baelor in between. Here's the thing, Baelor and Blackwater are the most subject to be switched around.
I was just about to say, Baelor is going to be my 3.
Right, because Baelor, obviously, besides Ned Stark getting his head cut off, but
it was the moment where I was just like, oh, this show's fucking
right,
weird.
because that's the moment where you realize what the show was.
Yeah, people are going to die.
Yeah, but again, people are going to die, and the hero does not always win. Where Ned Stark is your guy, and Ned Stark is like the most traditionalist character ever. So, if we're wrapping that up, because like I said, we're almost done.
We're almost there. Don't worry, I'm almost there.
Almost there.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2, The Reigns of Castamere.
Right.
Oh my god, how could I not put this as my number 2? Because I had not gotten to that point yet in the books before it happened. Oh my fucking god.
So it's like we were just saying,
destroyed the shit out of me.
For what Watchers on the Wall did for me, Reigns of Castamere did for me.
Exactly.
And
destroyed the shit out of me.
Narratively, I think Reigns of Castamere has the most what's going on, because like I said, the other thing that Game of Thrones does too is that it alternates with penultimate episodes where you have the narrative with the more narrative-focused episodes, and
also adding in
versus the battle sequences
not
that
just
are the even seasons.
But also adding in the fact that she was pregnant, and like adding that from the books, and that she existed, and
And also just the smallest stuff that happens in the episode too, where you also have the fun little but it just happens at the meeting where you have the wildlings are about to kill that farmer, and then they're about to attack Jon when Jon reveals his true colors, and then Bran sending out the direwolves to assist him. And then it's like you said. So I understand everything there. Like I said, because I watched it after the fact though, and because it was more of I watched it after the fact, and because I kind of already got it with Baelor, and because I didn't have the same type of emotional connection to and investment in Robb and Catelyn the way that I did in Jon and Ygritte and with Ned in season 1. Like, I don't know what it was writing-wise, because they're still well written and fleshed out or whatever. I also think the switch up with having Robb with Talisa as opposed to what happened with Jane Westerling in the books, to me just something never felt right about that. It just it never felt like a logical decision, because these characters and like I get it, honorable and everything, but the whole point of them being married was a sense of honor. Right, because Robb always took the most after Ned, which is what got him killed, and just the idea of like, oh, that pure passionate love or whatever, it never really made that much sense to me. So I think that was another big reason why it just didn't hit me. And also is the other thing of one of my most recent rewatch, that I rewatched Reigns of Castamere fairly recently. It was just rough. It was like that was those moments where I'm like, it didn't emotionally wreck me. It was just hard to watch. Like, besides the fact that you're watching a woman who's barely pregnant getting stabbed multiple times, besides the brutal
You're watching a mother lose her son.
You're watching a mother lose her son. You're watching a little sister who has not seen her family in years and literally getting, for Arya at least, it's King's Landing all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
With watching her family and friends and people who knew her family get brutally murdered. It was King's Landing all over again. So from that stance, it was a little bit repetitive to me, just because of how it was executed
I can see that.
Where again, it's the first time I'm like, it's King's Landing all over again. I've seen this already, and like I said, and just watching, it was just hard to watch. Because like I said, I've said this before. I was actually saying this on my review for Prisoner of Azkaban. Is the thing about these types of deaths in movies for what people declare as important characters? What I usually find is, with the deaths, what hits the hardest, the biggest comparison that I come up is, and one of the reasons that makes Prisoner of Azkaban one of the best Harry Potter instances is, with the deaths of these characters, it's not the deaths of the characters that hit, it's the ones that they leave behind. And understanding the effect that has on them going forward. Where, in order to compare it a little bit more to Harry Potter, in Prisoner of Azkaban is the first instance where Harry meets somebody other than himself that was affected by Lily and James dying. Because obviously they were famous, because beforehand, like I said, he's a little kid, everybody knew them being famous, and like everybody's hit, but he doesn't really understand the personal connection. Like maybe Dumbledore probably has the most emotional investment, and Snape, but again, because that's not revealed until much later, you don't get the sense. Prisoner of Azkaban is the first time where you understand that Harry is not alone in his grief over losing his parents. Because the other thing too is that Harry's a baby when it happens, so he doesn't have the same type of emotional response. But when he meets Lupin, and hearing Lupin, that little conversation on the bridge between Lupin and Harry, him telling him about recognizing him as Lily, and he's just like, oh yeah, you knew who I was from the scar. And it's like, no, I knew from your eyes. You have your mother's eyes and everything. But you have and understanding like how close he was with his parents, and then with Sirius and everything, and understanding the twist there. Like, that was the first instance to me where I'm like, oh my god, these types of deaths have impacts on not just one person. And so narratively, Reigns of Castamere is one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen. Emotionally, though, it was just really, really hard to watch, and because I didn't have the same type of emotional investment in Robb and Cat as I did, that is why Reigns of Castamere does not work for me the way that it does a lot of other people. I like Season 3, but to me, at least, again, because I don't have that type of emotional investment, the most interesting dynamic that's happening to me in Season 3 is Jamie. Yeah. Jamie, that's
absolutely.
It. Season 3 is not, I've famously said, is not one of my favorite seasons. It's not. Jamie's, to me, is the only interesting arc in that entire show. So, if we're wrapping it up, just to finish it up. So, I have Battle of the Bastards famously in my number 2. And
I have it as my number 1.
And I'm actually going to explain why, because going back and pulling a little bit of a David Chase, for me, it's all execution. It's all execution of how that battle, those two sequences are executed.
So, can I explain why it's my number 1?
I'll explain it and let you explain why it's your number 1.
So, basically, my number 1 is Battle of the Bastards, because I've never had a show give me a fucking panic attack before.
Okay.
Make me feel claustrophobic.
Right.
Make me feel nervous. Make me not understand where they were going and be afraid.
Right.
The minute that John's under the pile, that whole minute,
you feel like you cannot breathe.
One, I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
The entire time.
You are suffocating with him. It's amazing.
Yes. Not just that, but the whole fact that there's that long take that starts the battle and shows the confusion of war
Right.
so well that I haven't seen since like a Saving Private Ryan type of situation.
Right, yes.
And so the minute and that whole minute, I'm like, he's gonna die.
Yes.
They brought him back for a whole season just so he could die.
Right.
And I was ready for him to.
Yeah.
I was ready for him to die. And then all of a sudden, the fucking just
The Knights of the Eyrie. A much more logical Deus Ex Machina than, say,
Way more logical.
than the dragon.
because you've got Littlefinger and you've got, you know...
Because that's an interesting narrative change that you're not expecting, and it's
Yeah.
not just, something like a dragon coming in. So here, let me explain why I only have Battle of the Bastards number 2, because Battle of the Bastards is still one of my favorite episodes of Game of Thrones ever. When I do, eventually, my top 10 favorite Game of Thrones episode ever, that will be very high up there. Here's the thing. I like the win. This is one of the very few instances where I actually like the finale more than the penultimate episode, because Winds of Winter, no joke, Winds of Winter might be my favorite episode of Game of Thrones ever.
Really?
Ever. I'm not kidding. So here's the thing. Battle of Bastards, you're right. Everything that you just said, absolutely brilliant. It is technically one of the most brilliant episodes ever. Miguel
See, and I'm a
Sapochnik-
technique guy.
Right, and that's completely
That's the
understandable.
thing.
That's perfectly fine. I know people who just watch this stuff to watch the craft, right? Just
Right.
to see the sequences of how they're filmed. And Miguel
Yeah.
Sapochnik does things in that episode that I have never seen done on
Yeah.
TV before. The flipping of the perspectives, the types of takes that he does, the way that he mixes and mingles, like I said, the confusion of the war, the way that he makes his audience literally suffocate with the character, the way that he uses inside. I actually watched a lesson from the screenplay video on how that entire episode is executed. The way that he uses audience expectations when it comes to those things against the audience in order to reverse switch, make you think that Rickon's going to survive for the brief second before Ramsay kills him. Here's why I only have it at number 2, because you're right. Like I said, it is one of the most brilliant, technically speaking, episodes, because narratively, they still accomplished everything that I knew was going to happen. They flipped it against you a lot, and they were constantly making you on the edge of your seat.
In all seriousness,
and everything.
I know it sounds
like
it sounds like I'm a chump,
I know.
but I thought he was gonna die. I was ready for him to die.
And that's fine. You're allowed to think that. But here's the thing. I'm like, look, logically, for the purposes of the show, and again, I'm not going to blame the writers for this because they were kind of in a hole because it's Benioff and Weiss. They know that they have to do certain things in order to get the narrative to an end, and they know that they can only do 2 more seasons after this. It still did literally, no joke. I'm like, it's going to be tricky. But and not just with Jon in the Battle of the Bastards, with everything that was going on in Essos. I'm like, Daenerys is going to show up and she's going to use the dragons against them and they're going to win everything. Finally, because they finally have the budget and the dragons are finally big enough to actually do some damage.
Yeah.
Cool to look at, but it still did absolutely everything that I thought was going to happen.
Right.
Then bouncing over, and then the one thing I will say is that the moment with the Greyjoys, I did like that. I like that very much. And Daenerys' little back and forth with fucking Yara, that was great. But again, as great as it was, everything that I thought was going to happen still happened. Where Daenerys is going to use the dragon, she's going to kill all the slavers, and she's going to basically assert her dominance. Jon is going to falter because he doesn't have enough men. Because that's the thing that Sansa's been telling him all season. He does not have enough men, but he's still going to go in half-cocked. He's not going to be prepared. He's going to be overtaken. And it's going to seem like they're going to get overrun, and then Sansa's going to write to Littlefinger, and they're going to come in with the Knights of the Vale, and at the end, I didn't know how Sansa was going to kill him, Ramsay, but I knew it was going to be Sansa that ended up killing Ramsay. Jon was going to get in a few emotional like beatdowns, but it was going to be Sansa that ended up killing Ramsay. Like I said, so as much as I loved everything that I saw, and
he was torn apart by his own fucking
and that leads to my one quote that I always say: never, always feed your puppies. Or they will eat you. I've made so many jokes about that since then. Is that as much as I loved it and as brilliant, like I said, it's one of the most brilliantly executed moments of television I've ever seen. It still did everything that I knew was going to happen, and for me at least, there's just a little bit lacking because because I also didn't have the type of emotional investment and build-up in those characters at that point the way I did with Watchers on the Wall.
Right.
And that's why Watchers on the Wall to me is still number 1, and that also builds into, which is a topic that unfortunately we will have to discuss on a later episode, why season 4 has replaced season 6 as being my favorite season of Game of Thrones ever. So with that, I just realized we also never did a formal introduction, but that's fine. But Charlie, thank you again for everything.
Absolutely.
Please go pee because you've been pacing around for the last 20 minutes now.
Oh my god, it's been so rough.
I will handle this, and peace out, people. We'll see you next time.
The Laker Movie Nerd Review Podcast, the newly formed and combined love child of the movie nerd and Oswegonians Laker Review Podcast.
I'm gonna make him an offer, Cameron.
Say what again? Say what again?
Why so serious?
Watch what happens. Well, what happened is this bull would go right through your fucking head. Watch what happens.
I am the one who knocks.